Hello, and welcome to episode 39 of Spreading the Nerd. I'm your host for tonight, Rick. As Clint couldn't make it today, and he spent all day yesterday gallivanting around Boston, hanging out with Silkenet at PAX without me. Joining me today for our third podcast together this week is friend of the show and returning guest Alejandro Segovia of Season Gaming fame. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Rick. Yeah, third time in the week that we record. That's actually really fun. The most we've recorded together in a week because we've gotten to two before. But glad to be here
crazy.
to supplant Clint as he's planting babies all over Boston.
I mean, if he's doing that, that's news to me. But I guess it could be.
You never know what happens in Boston. Stay in Boston, I think.
That's right. And you know what? As someone who's been to Boston, it should stay in Boston because Massachusetts sucks.
So I've heard.
But Boston itself is okay, but Massachusetts sucks.
Yeah. I've always kind of wanted to go there just to learn the American history.
The historical side is the only good part about Boston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you can kind of see it in Fallout 4. So I'm like, I think I've probably seen what I need to see out of Boston.
Actually, I would argue you see it much better in Last of Us, to be honest with you. Like the Last of Us representation of well, I'm just saying like the different buildings that you see and stuff like that are actually very, very like well done. When I went there, I saw the courthouse that Tess gets killed in. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, this looks exactly like it did in the game, which obviously the other way around, but I had not seen it that way prior. So yeah, so how's it going on your side? You got anything going on?
Just it's been a long Friday today because it's been like we're like getting close to launching the next step of our family business, so it's kind of like been all hands on deck. And Friday night's the day before Mother's Day, which Mother's Day is the 10th for us. Traffic is worse than pandemonium, let's just say, especially over here. Like we have more cars than we have streets, so trying to drive around all this shit, it's it can be kind of like a demoralizing. And today was the first time that I ever did a review all written from my phone while I was outside.
Oh God, that sounds awful.
Yeah, so just imagine everything that I've been having to do all day, like launch a business, getting a review that I needed to get in on Tuesday, and then I just had a massive mental block on top of like the busyness to kind of like right into that. I was like, I can't let this pass another week. Like I think this is the apex of when I want to say what I want to say before discourse gets out of control. So I might just kind of get it in and just wash my hands and move away. So
yeah, well, good luck with that, considering that discourse has already gotten out of control.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah. So before it got more, I was like, might as well. And before my pure thoughts got more infected, like in the opposite. We may talk about that because it's like discourse can get infected in both ways. So
yeah, actually, we were just talking about it yesterday, and obviously today's show, I'm sure there's going to be a large amount of overlap, compared to what we talked about yesterday. But we had talked about the discourse for Expedition 33 being pretty wild, and I don't know what it was, but I was looking at Twitter today, and I saw something. I'm like, this is exactly what we were talking about. This is completely hyperbolic as to how groundbreaking this game is, and it's like it's just not that. It's not that it's not good, but it's not ground. You know what this reminds me of? Honest to God, it reminds me of Elden Ring. That's exactly what happened with that. Remember how that was a completely revolutionary game, and I'm like, in what way was this game revolutionary?
Yeah,
so it's just bad. It did nothing new, so I don't know how it was revolutionary.
Yeah, it went back to Far Cry 2. That's what I always keep saying, that Far Cry 2 and the alternate reality would have been like the template a lot of people would have followed, which was like a game more diegetic in its design and not pointing you at everywhere. And then you get Far Cry 3, which is the opposite. That gave us like the checklist bonanzas that everyone got so sick of that then when they got Elden Ring, on top of it being like a Souls game at the peak of like the Souls genre rising in popularity, it was just kind of like an apex that enveloped the entire conversation of that game. And I feel like Expedition 33 is dangerously flirting into overly hyperbolic statements that don't describe the game, but it's a game worth glazing at the same time. That's kind of like what's so frustrating about it, that I feel like I feel so positive about that game and how it artfully impacted me that I feel like genuine conversation about how it's impacted a lot of people are kind of getting enveloped by the over hyperbole of some statements that feel out of line. compared to like what it is. This is not a revolutionary game. This is an homage to games that have come before, executed almost impeccably. That's probably like the thing that it's most impressive about it. That it's kind of like you can see where the inspirations kind of come from, and it's to the game's credit that it mixes all of that inspiration into like a blender to make what the end result of this thing ended up being like feel something fresh and its own to this thing. And I feel you can say that without saying like it's the most groundbreaking, like the most revolutionary, because like no, it's like an iteration out of inspiration. It's like a kind of if inspiration is the biggest form of flattery. I don't know how that phrase goes. Kind of, I feel Expedition 33 is kind of that.
Imitation is the best
or imitation. Yeah, exactly.
So, form of flattery or something like that.
Exactly. Like if it's imitating everything, is like it's taking great inspirations from some of the greats. Is like you can like pinpoint like the series is taken from. Like even the most tiring comparisons that can happen with that game, which is kind of like the Souls comparisons, which I would say it's also wrong to say there's none inspirations there. Like you can clearly see them.
There's definitely enemy designs in that are designed, they're inspired by Souls. I mean, those whatever they're called that you deal with on the
Stonewall Cliffs.
Yeah, whatever it's called. Yeah, I mean, if you would take that image and put it on the internet and say what's this from, 9 out of 10 people are going to say Dark Souls.
Exactly. Yeah, and very hard to like separate the fact that the director of the game is a self-proclaimed Sekiro speedrunner, and particularly kind of like said that he thought, what if a similar kind of parry system could be like merged into a turn-based game? That was kind of like one of the inspirations what they got on top of this game being like, hey, we want to do a high fidelity turn-based game because AAA is not doing it. That was kind of like how this game was kind of came to be. It's like they're not doing it, we're doing it ourselves. And from that result, I feel like right now, like the industry is so right now, I feel it's like so hurt by everything that's happened over the last 2 years with like all the plethora of bad news, of over expenses, layoffs, chasing trends and things like that. That then when you get someone going against the grain with that and hitting on the type of game that, though the genre has not been underserved, high fidelity turn-based games have been served, that I feel like we live in the era of kind of like it's 1 to 100. You get one taste of that, and then people just drive that thing to the extreme.
Well, that's actually an exact point too, because one of our obviously topics today is going to be about the reviews of Doom, the Dark Ages coming out. I have already seen numerous people saying, well, this probably isn't long enough to warrant being a full price game. It needs to be like Expedition 33 and Mafia, the Old Country, and be $50. It's like, you have no idea how long this game is. You have no idea where on earth did this come from. And that's just that's just what I mean.
That's the thing. Is like it feels like we live in perpetual
discussion of anything in this industry now is so unbelievably brain dead that it is hard to even remotely talk about it anymore, because everything, like, you can make intelligent comparisons, and the internet just does not want to do that. They latch onto one thing and they assign that to everything from that point forward.
And that's the worst part about like being able to discuss, because there is gray areas, there is nuances. Like I feel like I try my best to try to paint that how impressed I was with Clear Obscure without ever going into hyperbole, besides the soundtrack, which is still something that I need you to hear from later on so you can see kind of what I mean. But it's kind of like, I feel you can have those honest discussions, and it's funny. Like I wrote into Sacred Symbols today, and my writing was kind of like red. Or I talked about Expedition 33, asking like, at what point is too much praise? Because it's like I feel like the discussion is getting away from the game at this point, because it's just kind of like all become one blob of like the game touching people in very specific ways. It's kind of what I said even in my review, that it's like, this is a game that you need to experience. It's like, it's so artful that it's gonna like resonate differently for many different people, but for the people that it does, it's gonna like leave a profound impact on you, like in an artistic way. But
I mean, again, based on that too, this is something we've discussed as well. Is I kept hearing, if you don't like turn-based RPGs, this is the one for you. Where did that come from? If you don't like turn-based RPGs, you're still not going to like this game. Like I have no idea where that came from.
Yeah, and I don't know why, or it probably here's kind of like my thing. They probably inherently always like turn-based RPGs, and they were always turned up by the anime styling. Because I can believe that the turn-based RPGs in recent years, excluding the wackiness of the infinite welds and the and the Like a Dragon. Like if you see a lot of the turn-based games right now, they're mostly anime, or like the anime art style is very prevalent there, and a lot of people sometimes just take to more hyper realistic art styles, and that's probably like these posters that are saying that this is the one. They probably would have loved turn-based anyway. It's just that they couldn't get over their hang up over the weaviness of the art styles, and that to me is like so brain dead. To me personally, be like, yes,
it's completely brain dead. It's just like that'd be like saying, oh, you don't like Souls games because they're hard. Well, you like Elden Ring because it's bigger. But actually, you know what? That actually is a discussion that constantly happens. Is it's just because you don't like it because it's hard. That's okay because you can play Elden Ring because you can just run around the world and level up. It's like you can do that in Dark Souls as well.
Yeah.
Like what on earth? Where did that come from? And it's not just me trying to dog on Elden Ring. It's just saying when something becomes the complete zeitgeist in the thing, people turn off their brains when they're talking about it for some reason, and I don't understand why that is. It didn't actually happen that much with Kingdom Come, which I actually thought it was going to. Because Kingdom Come for a hot minute was kind of the hot thing, but like outside of talking about how good the writing was the way that, which is just absolutely true on that one, like it didn't become like, well, if you don't like first person games, you're still gonna like this one because you get to look down and see your body, or whatever ridiculous argument someone wants to make. So somehow that actually kind of avoided that, but I actually will say I think like last year with Infinite Wealth, I think I do remember some pretty stupid talking points, but it never got anywhere near what it got with Elden Ring and with Expedition 33. That's just completely out of control.
Yeah, it just feels like it catches when one of these games catches fire. Is like you can have intelligent discussions about this game, but they get lost so quickly over just empty platitudes and definitive statements. And I feel that's kind of like the problem of like something catching fire that then brings it into kind of game that you usually don't play. That's when you start getting all this I don't even want to call it stupid, just out of respect, but it kind of like just very uninformed explanations of why it's working for them. In my example, Souls games finally clicked for me because of Elden Ring, but kind of for me was that the thing that always bothered me about the previous Souls games was if I was stuck in one boss, I'm SOL. Like I'm stuck here, and I had to kind of run back and forth with the same just to kind of level up. It was just kind of the same loop over and over to kind of level up and have enough stats that maybe will help me like fight these enemies, and me not understanding even how to use stats and how to properly allocate stats and all that. I didn't really understand the game, and I felt Elden Ring more easily taught me how to do that, and also gave me like a world where if I got stuck at fucking Margit, I could just ride around because it's like there's still a whole game that I could go explore, and didn't allow me to just wallow in my own misery. And I feel that's kind of like what happened to a lot of people, that they wouldn't want to just grind back and forth in the same area and be like, I'm wasting my time here. I can't do this. I'm moving on. That I feel that's why the Elden Ring was the one that clicked for a lot of people.
Well, right, but that's not the discussion that people had. I think you're right. That is where you could say it is, hey, if you get to a brick wall, there are other areas that you can go to maybe, the discussion was, it's so big, if you have a hard time, you can just go level up. And it's like, you can do that since Demon Souls. That's nothing new. The only ones that truly like really limited this was like Bloodborne, because you couldn't level up until you got to a certain point when you unlocked the doll. Everything else, even Dark Souls 3, you got the Firekeeper right away. So it's like that was such a stupid argument. Well, okay, I guess you could say Sekiro because there's not really much way of leveling there, but like it was such a stupid argument. It's like everything you're saying you could say with all the other ones too.
But, it's like the big difference is that now like there are more things to do besides just like stonewalling at a boss. And Elden Ring did have that. Like people could spend like 40 hours at Limgrave, find a lot of different new things, like without ever going back to Margit if they got stuck, and then suddenly because they naturally kind of got around. I feel like that's kind of like what Elden Ring did that let it click more than other Souls games. But here's also kind of what's funny, because I didn't like Dark Souls at first. When Elden Ring clicked for me in 2022, I went to try Dark Souls immediately just to kind of be like, could I take these lessons immediately to like an older game? And the game just snapped into mind for me. It's like, these games are all the same. Like literally, it's like these games are all the same. It's just about getting it. And it just so happened that Elden Ring did that just by eliminating that grind, that same hallway corridor over and over and over and over. That's the one thing that Elden Ring did more, on top of the bringing back a diegetic open world at a time where people were just sick and tired of Ubisoft style checklists. So that's why that's why I'm like yeah, it's like you can have like more nuanced discussions, but I get what you're saying, because like with the things that they were saying is like you could apply more directly to like previous games. So it's like, why here or not? And I feel there's more explanation to be able to do that. And it's like, like kind of like what I was saying with Expedition 33. I feel like that hyperbole has definitely come from people that usually don't engage with this kind of game as often, and it just happens that it's enveloped with an artistry that has really resonated with a lot of people. But I feel like I wish that the conversation was a little bit more measured, because I feel like there's normal, there's glazing, and there's hyperbole. And I feel like I would love to have
we're past glazing. We're very quickly approaching hyperbole.
Exactly. So it's like and to me that sucks, because I feel it's a game worth having the conversations from over here instead of like where it's gotten so completely out of control. That on top of that, the ones that I hate the most is glazing this game by putting down others. No.
Which for whatever reason has become the absolute way that everyone's doing it. And it's like,
and I hate that, because it's like, that's how you grow resentment to the thing you want to glaze over. Because that's kind of what happens. It's like, I don't blame you, because I know we had this conversation that you like the game, but you're not seeing that like the praise that it's been getting. But it's like, I know more people, there's plenty of people are going to be like, you're already seeing them.
What's funny about it is I actually don't believe critically it's all that overrated. I think critically it's maybe higher than I would go, but I still don't put it in overrated category. When it comes to the consumer opinion, I think it is massively overrated to the point of absolute insanity, actually.
Yeah, so, for user reviews that tend to always go much lower than critic reviews, because the people are going into those extremes. Just look at The Last of Us Part 2 with its 5.7 user rating.
Yeah, well, that's because of all the people that never played 2 seconds of it, and they knew how bad of a game it was.
And you know what's funny about reading about those user reviews is like it's one of the most per capita, if you separate like how many people review that game positively, it has so many positive reviews.
Sure.
More than most positive reviews of games that ended up reviewing positively. You can really tell that it was a review bomb. And how can you see even more positivity about a game that's a little bit more objective? Look at the user reviews on a PSN. They're insanely high for that game. There's the people that actually played it.
Well, I think to review it on PSN, I believe you have to own it, which is why.
Yep. Exactly. Metacritic, no.
You could just go on there and review on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that kind of like takes us into what we're playing. I guess we could consider that whole Expedition 33 to be part of that discussion. I don't really have a lot to say here. I mean, Assassin's Creed, Kingdom Come, Expedition 33. I finished Act 1. I have not really started 2 yet because we had the show yesterday and I haven't had too much time to mess with it. And then the reviews today kind of put me in the mood to play a little bit of Doom Eternal. So I did that briefly when I got home, and I hate the Marauder. I actually was on a Marauder fight, and I'm just like, oh god, I didn't realize I had one right here.
Yeah, it's like, and that's Doom Eternal is so good, and it's
amazing, and that I hate so bad. And like they had a good idea with the Marauder that they totally ruined by making him just immune, except for like one. He's a basically a counterattacking enemy, and it's so stupid. That does not fit Doom at all.
Yeah, whoever designed the Marauder literally was like, let's take all the strengths about the gameplay loop we created Doom Eternal, and let's do the complete opposite. We're gonna there's an enemy where you will have to stop moving. You have to like somehow measure how in the middle you are to fight that thing, because otherwise he shotguns you or like grapples you or something like that.
You have to effectively get rid of everything else while avoiding him, because you really can't fight him when there's other enemies there.
Yeah, you're gonna be
and then you have to get into middle range. You can't do long range and you can't do short range, and you have to wait until he does an attack where his eyes flash, and then shoot him with a certain weapon, or I guess there's 2 of them, but you can't use
the BFG with him.
well, that, and you also can't use any of the what do you call them, like auto fire weapons, because they don't do anything. You have to shoot with basically the super shotgun or the what's it called, the ballast or whatever.
Yeah, the ballast is another one, like the super shotgun is the one that has the 2 that's like double barrel, right?
Yeah. And it's like everything about this goes against everything that this game is. Like, what were they thinking here? He looks so cool. Yes. Why did they not just make him a regular tough enemy? And that's exactly, and then he would have been fine.
Yeah. Or just like commit to one style. instead of giving him such a complete kit that is like completely antithetical to everything in the game.
The biggest issue of the whole thing is that he blocks any attack except for when you're using when you hit him with the green flashing. It's like, that's so stupid. That does not fit with this game at all. But everything else about the game is genuinely like some of the top quality single player shooters of all time.
It's a prettier game than 2016. Like, it's so much faster. It's like the chunkiness of the combat. It's like it's kind of like the jump from God of War 2018 to God of War Ragnarok. Like, do you see the similarities?
I would say it's a bigger jump than that, actually. More because of the enemy types than anything else. But like, ever since I was a little kid, I was obsessed with the Archvile. So the fact that they brought the Archvile back was a big deal. And boy, they made him a son of a bitch in this too. He is tough in Doom Eternal. I mean, he was tough in Doom 2 as well, but he is really freaking tough in Doom Eternal. But that's it. I mean, I'm just I'm kind of hyped for Dark Ages. We'll talk about that, but
yeah, because it's in a week. I was watching the Digital Foundry comparison of the things, and PS5 Pro the sharpest one, but Xbox Series X the best running one. Actually,
I did not watch until the PlayStation one, but they said what I wanted them to say, which is the Xbox Series X version looks great and runs flawlessly. I'm like, that's all I had to hear. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like, don't feel bad if you don't have a Pro for that one. It seems like the Series X version runs better, which that's kind of what
interesting, actually.
Because for Indiana Jones, because I was also playing it on PS5 Pro, because I kind of wanted to get trophies for that game. That game runs as good as the Series X version, but it definitely looks better with better lighting and higher resolution because of DRS.
Well, it specifically has much more ray tracing than like the Xbox version does have it, but it's
just more intense. It's like if the Xbox version was like a low level ray tracing, like on PS5 Pro, it's like mid level, not quite.
It's higher resolution ray tracing. I think is a big thing, but it makes a big difference. No, I mean, either way, you can't complain with the graphics on the Xbox Series X version of even Indiana Jones. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the game, but certainly the technical side is there's no issue there whatsoever. Like that's
kind of what I find fun. It's like I feel like Indiana Jones, his strength is his presentation and nailing the vibe
no question about it,
and the tone of Indiana Jones. Gameplay is where it's more divisive because
that's pretty much my like. I don't even mind the like slower pace, but considering it's a game basically built around the stealth in it is terrible.
Yeah, it
is terrible.
Yeah, it's very poor man's Dishonored in a way. Like you can break it like really easily. Which what's funny is that I feel like the AI, the intelligence of the AI of those enemies are very Star Wars Indiana Jones coded because a lot of people are so stupid in those movies. So you can kind of wave it as like they're staying true to the stupidity of the intelligence of the enemies of the movies. But you have to be a really big fan of those movies to kind of come into that justification. That's kind of how I see
it. Which I actually am, but like I don't hate it. Like I don't want to sound like I don't like it or that I dislike it. I just
you got overglazed.
It's I'm not even saying that. I'm not saying that at all. It's just it doesn't really work that well for me, I think is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah,
but
I love it a lot though. Like I feel like I think the thing that makes me love it so much for me is just the fact that they worked over time to not make it like Uncharted. I would know because I've replayed Drake's Fortune and I'm in the middle of also replaying Among Thieves right now. It's kind of like a palate cleanser. I was like, yeah, I've been playing Dangerous. I kind of want to go to Uncharted. It's like to their credit, there's like the only thing that's common about both of those games that they're about archaeologists or kind of like adventurers, and that's pretty much it. And one, it's so laser focused on being like a point and click style adventure, like grounded, like slower paced adventure that gives it its own identity. And the other one wants to be Mission Impossible, and that works for Uncharted, and that works for this one. It's like if you just kind of want the more, I don't even want to call it brain dead, but kind of like more comparatively like straightforward game that is like Uncharted, especially the early ones.
One's more of an adventure game, the other one's more of an action adventure game.
Exactly.
That's probably a better way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Indiana Jones does a better job with the,
sense of place, exploration of things.
Yeah, whereas in almost every other area, I think not counting story because I have not played enough of the story for Indiana Jones to judge that, but in basically every other area, not counting. Well, actually, the tech's pretty damn good in both, but in terms of gameplay wise in every area, I much prefer Uncharted. But
yeah, Uncharted is more fun. It's a more fun game.
It's a matter of personal preference. I understand why people like indie. It just didn't really resonate with me.
Exactly, and I feel like in that case, people were expecting, like, even from its reveal, they were expecting an Uncharted, like they got something completely different. And I feel like right now we're at a point in the industry that a lot of trend chasing, a lot of derivative trend chasing has probably gotten a lot of people so sick that as soon as they get a taste of something different that goes against the norm, boom. It's like I feel that's also happened with Expedition 33. That is a game that a lot of people wouldn't usually play too. And I feel like
what you just said is definitely right, but it's very much an idea that I push back against because I'm like, not everything has to be a new genre. Like that's just that is such a stupid mindset. But,
yeah, and it just goes to show how many people are so locked into the same old that's us that are older that we've seen this kind of game. That's kind of the thing we see in Indiana Jones. Like we see a version of this game in Dishonored. We've seen it in Thief. Like I remember even Paul, our other co-host over at the Xbox podcast that comes in every 2 weeks. Like the first time he started playing Indiana Jones, it was like, this is poor man's Thief. He immediately said that, and it really is.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like
very, very poor man's. I think Thief was way better than Indiana Jones.
Exactly. So, that's why I said like poor man's Thief, because it's much better like in the things that is imitating. But I feel a lot of people sometimes are so starved for things that are not as common anymore that then like it gets overly blown, like out of proportion. I feel so.
Well, and again, I mean, a lot of people are, this is just a general statement, but a lot of people put their opinions out there when they genuinely don't know what they're talking about. They do not have the education of the history of the industry and all that stuff, but they think that they know what they're talking about. So that
is the key.
And that's the big thing. Like, I mean, I'm not saying you can't have an opinion. Obviously, you're entitled to any opinion you want, but like when you say, "Oh, everything now is the same," it's like, yeah, go back to 2000 and see what it was like, where there was like 3 genres of games.
Yeah, us that are older, I think we have more of that kind of seasoned perspective. That is kind of like we've seen it all. We've seen kind of like the ebbs and flows, and that's much. It's just more annoying, kind of like as you were saying, like as we were like back in our era, back in our time, like the only ways to express how we felt about things was sending letters to magazines or being like in a message board. It's not like this onslaught of information that's like so freely available for everyone. Everyone so easily can share everything. And now we're also in the engagement era that everyone likes to bait people like with like their outlandish opinions. And then those opinions are the ones that get like more proliferated, both just by people sharing and dunking on said opinions, or other few like trying to agree with that, even no matter how wrong it was. Then now we get like wrong opinions just being like overly like extrapolated like to the upteenth degree. Now that makes it more annoying to just talk about games. So outside of small pockets like we tend to do.
Yeah, you basically have to find your group and just talk about it there,
and that sucks.
It's pretty much what I do. Like I basically stopped talking entirely about the stuff on Twitter because it's just pointless. Unless I'm specifically talking to somebody that I'm friends with.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like at least about Discord. We can at least control that flow of info that way. But yeah, like Uncharted 1 and 2, like Uncharted 1, it's always funny thinking how bad it used to be like gameplay wise on PS3 and the PS4 Bluepoint like remaster for that one, kind of like how much it cleaned up a lot of the roughness without fully eliminating, so that it's actually like a modern playable product even right now. Like I feel like it's a solid like third-person shooter, not the greatest, but it's like
actually even at release I liked it. Like I really didn't think it was quite as bad as people said it was. However, once 2 and 3 came out and you went back to it, it's like, oh yeah, this really is quite dated in comparison to those. And and actually what's pretty remarkable is in your head it seems like it looks pretty equivalent to those. And it like the animations and especially the facial work is a marked step down in comparison to 2 and 3.
Yes. And on top of that, like if you look at the PS3 version, Nathan Drake didn't even have face textures. It was like a wax doll. And the PS3 version, they added facial texture to him in the PS4 version that are similar to his Uncharted 2 like face. And I feel like what Bluepoint did to Uncharted 1 is kind of like they did more work than I would anticipate anyone do for that kind of game, let's just say. And that was back in 2015. And it's still there. Obviously, like the other games are better, But I feel that that's always a fun one too. I like how brief it is. I can literally speedrun it in a day. Like I just put it on easy, and I know how to go.
If you do it on easy, you could probably beat it in 3 hours, I would think.
Yep, yeah, I've done it in like 3.5. Like, and that's kind of what because that's something like getting those completionist adrenalines into kind of like my brain of like, yeah, just rolling credits. And I like doing that with Uncharted. Uncharted is longer to be able to do that, and much tougher game in spots too. But it's still so excellent. It looks still so good. Like for what
series.
it is,
it is a great series. Like there is no bad entry in Uncharted.
Yeah.
The biggest crime is that they never ported Golden Abyss. Golden Abyss is good. You just needed to get it off the freaking Vita because A, nobody had the Vita. B, the Vita sucked. Sorry, people, it's true. And C, like it had the problem was it had all that bullshit, Vita touchpad crap or rear touchpad shit.
You remember the point where you had to put like the Vita in a light?
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
Like in reality, it told a cool story. It told a cool I guess it was kind of a prequel story. It took place before Uncharted 1, I think. But it was good.
It's better than Drake's Fortune.
It's better than Drake's Fortune.
I would argue.
Better than Drake's Fortune, yeah.
Yes, and it's the longest Uncharted game. It's probably the most video gamey out of all the Uncharted games because the most that they embrace Drake as an explorer because there's shit ton of treasures in that one.
Yeah.
And even then, like it's not just finding collectibles. Like you had to like assemble maps and all that because they wanted. It was like a Vita tech showcase of almost everything, like from down the the backpad, the touchpad in the front, and all of that is like that gave it more of an adventure feeling than usually the more breezy like action adventure Uncharted like mainline series. And I feel Uncharted 4 got the closest at trying to imitate what Golden Abyss did as an adventure because it felt more like when you're like getting collectibles and you're actually getting like the actual.
It felt like you were assembling
a journal.
Yeah, a journal, and it felt like you were putting clues together and stuff like that, whereas the other ones really, even though they tried, they really didn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, in Uncharted 1 through 3, like the collectibles, you just pick them, you seal the thing, and you move on. It's like there was not much of extra meat to the bone beyond exploring levels, solving puzzles, which are not that hard. It's like Uncharted is notorious for having like 3 had the best puzzles, I would say. It was the more inventive ones. I don't know if you remember one that you needed to use light, a specific angle of light to kind of like stab. It's like they wanted to be more elaborate in those. 4 has a lot of kind of tricky puzzles, I remember. So they kind of got more involved. But I think it was more that they try to be the adventure game, but it was just an action adventure Mission Impossible, like crazy style that you didn't see the recent Mission Impossible movies straight up copy the set pieces of the Uncharted games. Mission Impossible 5 copied the airplane. The recent one, Dead Reckoning, copied the train sequence from Uncharted 2 almost beat for beat. So it's like it's more like Mission Impossible than an archaeology game, and that's where like the Indiana Jones game is kind of more true to what you would expect an archaeologist adventure game. But again, it's just it's just the intent, the different intent. And I, for one, appreciate that Indiana Jones is not like an Uncharted wannabe.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, that would have been like the comparison would have been so annoying. Down to like, look at this climbing. I bet you would have seen it. Look at the angle, the camera angle. Look at this punch compared. Like you would have seen that like completely. We know how the internet is. How brain dead it is that they like criticize Aloy's climbing down the rope in Forbidden West and Kratos going back into like a boat. Like
for some reason, a certain group of idiots, and we know what that group is. Wanted to say they were used in animation. It's like, what's a damn good animation? Why would you change it?
Exactly.
it's just straight up a complete. It's fanboy award, and it's just straight up non-understanding of the industry.
Exactly. He's just wanting to just find criticism out of criticism's sake, and just then poison discourse or the apparent discourse of anything. So they're the bitches in your ear telling you good things are bad, basically.
So next up, we will review the not very many answers that were from 2 weeks ago for question of the week.
Yes.
The question was to pick one game that you wanted to see remade, preferably something a bit older and something that was, should be probably mid quality to maybe outright bad, but had some actually cool ideas, and you kind of would like to see it remade and actually fixed up to be what it had the capability of being, were it to have some decent development behind it or whatever. So I went first because actually when I posed the question, I actually already had my answer in my mind anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I had said this is something for the olds out there. It's an old PC game called Jurassic Park Trespasser. Are you familiar with this one, Alex?
I think I've seen the box of that one. I think at a rental.
It was a very interesting idea, and actually there was a lot of hype behind this before it came out. But unfortunately, it was really freaking bad. It was I don't remember what engine it used, but it was something that was kind of like a hot engine to use at the time. Basically, it was an open world Jurassic Park game. You were stuck in. I said Isla Nublar, but it might have been Isla Sorna. I can't remember which one you were stuck on. Because it was probably before Lost World, so it might have still been Nublar. You were a lady. I think you were some scientist or something like that. But it was very physics based and stuff like that. And like the dinosaurs were roaming around, and you had to. It was that I remember. You didn't have like preset puzzles. Like you had to figure things out, right? Like you had to if you had to climb over a fence like that, you would find barrels and like stack them up and stuff like that. And it was a really cool idea that just did they bork the landing. And it was extremely buggy. A very common, almost early internet meme that went around of it was so like you would make her hand go out and then you would move the mouse around to do whatever you want to do, right? The AI was so broken that someone had a Velociraptor that just wasn't doing it. It was just standing there. And they made it look like they were petting the Velociraptor because it was just standing there not reacting. But if you put that in the right hands of somebody, gave them a budget, gave them time, I think you could make an absolutely incredible like survival action game out of that. And just think like how intense it could be if you were, having to work your way around and deal with all the different kinds of dinosaurs, the Dilophosaurus, your random compies. You might occasionally encounter a Tyrannosaurus, all that kind of shit. You'd have to like figure it out. And it did have guns, although it was very weird because you like held them straight, like even like a two-handed like shotgun or whatever. You would hold it straight out with one hand in front of your view. It looked bizarre.
Yes,
but it looked awesome, and it just failed so bad because it did not have the development chops that it needed.
I didn't write mine, but I want to hear which one would be mine.
Yeah, let me go through. Yeah, go ahead. If you got it, go ahead.
Sonic 06. Remake Sonic 06.
People have been actually the director or whatever did say they're thinking about it. People have said do it because there was a lot of good ideas there.
Yeah,
there were actually a lot of really good levels in that game. It's just that game was a mess.
Yeah, that's why it's so frustrating about that one because it's like I love Sonic Adventure 2. I like Sonic Heroes. Like Sonic 06 was just such a massive dump on.
It needed a full like additional year of development, and then it probably would have been really good.
Yeah, they just launched it because they were so desperate of launching something at the was it 20th anniversary at that point? Trying to remember, or was it 15th anniversary? I just know that it would have
had to be 15th because it was 2006. So
yeah, so
the Genesis would have come out about
91. Yeah, so they were so like adamant of like we gotta get this next gen Sonic game in 2006, and it's like, do you see how cool the ideas that they were kind of playing around with are? That you even see the fan game PO6 as someone that's been like kind of like remaking it in the Unity and has been like slowly releasing it. It's like, man, that's how you know. That's how you know it's like
what could have been. Yeah, that's what could have been.
What could have been. It's I feel more than anything, Sonic 06 started like the shit train for Sonic for like almost 2 decades. That was kind of like the game.
If it didn't start it, it sure became the king of it. But.
Exactly. Because I'm trying to think of like I like Adventure. I liked Adventure 2. I didn't mind Sonic Heroes. It's like I feel that was the first real bad 3D one that kind of like soured 3D Sonic for like a while. So
Unleashed wasn't bad. I know it had that obnoxious music that looped all the time or whatever when you were the werehog, but the game itself actually was pretty good.
Yeah, half of it was good. The other half was.
It was okay. It wasn't what you play a Sonic game for. That was the problem.
Yeah, I did give it a 4.5. I remember.
And honestly, that's probably kind of generous.
Yes.
So Baden has a decent one here, kind of.
I want to hear.
But the problem is, it's not old. It's something from last year. I think it was last year.
Oh, really? Okay, I want to hear it.
The day before. He said the game was so good in concept that actually I argue it wasn't a game, and that was the problem.
The greatest scam of all.
Yep. Matt said, I think my pick would be Skylanders. It's not super old, but it's this. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people in our Discord are kind of young, so they can't go back as far as like me.
I know,
can,
but the thing is that because I remember you were mentioning that it had to be kind of like a mid game. Skylanders was considered mid. That's
why I was kind of surprised he said that. I think he was taking it more as something he'd like to see it come back.
Yes,
but
I would say as platformers, eliminating the Toys to Live thing, I think Skylanders was a solid enough platformer that it could come back without the Toys to Live.
And that's what's bizarre about his take is he wants the Toys to Life part to come back. I told him, I was like, what's weird is like before he posted that, maybe a day or two before, I think it was an XEP, we were talking about it, and somebody else had said, like totally unrelated to this, but they had said, I think maybe it was Anubis, I can't remember. So they wanted to see Skylanders come back, but they specifically said without the Toys to Life crap.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
more in line with me.
Yeah. Let's see. I think that might be. Ellery said Parappa the Rapper. I remember this game so vividly, but honestly can't remember if it was truly good or not. But let's remake this into a VR title. I don't know how you'd make it into a VR title, but I don't think we can really take this either as Parappa the Rapper is actually pretty beloved.
Yeah.
So I think perhaps a bit more than it should be. I mean, it has the kick punch tool in the mind, but it also is a game that's like 35 minutes long too. So there's that as well.
Let's just say that it's so like Parappa the Rapper is so beloved and it's liked enough that the last Astrobot from Astrobot was Parappa the Rapper, like kind of like inspired. So it's like so that kind of tells you kind of like how beloved is like in that pantheon. So you probably don't remember it much. It's super short. It's very, very short.
It was an early rhythm game, and they only had I think 6 songs in it. Well, the songs were a minute and a half each, something like that.
I have heard 2 is not as good as the first. Maybe that would be the one that I would tell him.
So. Same thing with Jammer Lammy or whatever the hell that was called. Because there's Jammer Lammy was the original like spiritual successor, and there was an actual Parappa the Rapper too. And then my wife Nicole said Sims Medieval. She did not go into any details. So I don't know much about that as to why that would be. I don't know what was good and what wasn't good about it, but I'll take her word for it.
I'm like, here, pardon my ignorance. Like usually, like I understand that most Sims are always all pretty equally good. The only one that was a catastrophe was 2013 Sim City. Like if you remember that legendary launch for that one, it's like I feel like they're usually liked similarly. But that's me. That's just me. Like yes,
you're thinking of the Sims games, like this is the Sims, as in
the
like,
Sims.
Like not like Sim City and all that stuff, like the Sims.
Yeah. But even then, like I feel like they're all kind of like equally, but that could be just me like spitballing, like even me talking about the Sims, those kind of like simulation.
That one I could be wrong. That one also may not have been made by Maxis, whereas Maxis did make most of them. But
makes sense.
Yeah, so that's all we really had. Didn't get a lot of answers there, including Clint never even friggin' answered it.
He's right now bashing the skull of a made up clicker over there in Boston. I saw a picture.
That was his daughter. Yeah, that was his daughter.
Okay.
And then they came across somebody cosplaying as Joel. So I guess I don't know how that came about off chart. Oh, that actually reminded me. I screwed up. I wanted to show the pictures of, well, at least one of Clint and Soaking It. And I totally forgot to do it. Hold on 1 second. Let me bring it up here.
Yeah, I'm looking at that picture of him smashing the clicker. So that's his daughter. And
she is the daughter, or she is the clicker. Yes.
Yeah, oh man, I used to have like these kind of like conventions here, not necessarily gaming conventions, but it reminds me of like a normal conventions here. It's making me nostalgic.
There's
heck yeah.
There's the fraud himself right there, and that's our bag apro Soaking It.
Yes.
I'm not jealous at all that they met up. Not even
one day you will.
I'm obviously very jealous. In case you can't tell, like when he posted the picture, I'm like, God damn it! I wish I was there. I don't care about PAX. I don't care about PAX at all. I wanted to hang out with those guys. But,
I know a lot of people love going to PAX specifically to hang out with people because like PAX is still like not a place where you go for the most groundbreaking stuff, but it's more for like the unique hangout.
Well, it's certainly not East. There is some stuff at Prime that they announce. They really don't announce anything at East. East is more just a convention to go to. I see
Very
Baldwin
expensive.
showed up. Good to see you, man.
Hello.
Yes, it is expensive. Silking it with those French dollars, man. He got the 4-day pass. He's there all the entire weekend. Clint was only there yesterday. He's doing something for his family this today and tomorrow, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see.
Hey, I can't complain. I'm going to SGF. So.
Yeah. You should make a point. I'm gonna try and get like a much bigger group of us to go to PAX next year. I know it's a little tougher for you as you have a very long trip to make.
Yes,
but you should try to make it. You should try to make it somehow.
Yeah, like the whole thing with PAX Prime, like that's
not Prime East.
Yeah, exactly. Because you mentioned Prime, like I thought they discontinued Prime for a while.
Maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe they did.
Yeah, because I have another buddy. His name is Sebastian. He usually goes to PAX, and he didn't go this year because he had like his puppy is going through some seizures, so he couldn't leave him. So because he usually goes to East and he goes to West, he kind of gave me the breakdown of how much it costs. I was like, ouch. It's like ouch. That's very expensive.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's much harder for me like to justify that if I know that my ROI of going is not gonna pay off. Like for this one, like why I'm going to SGF is I have the advantage that Season Gaming got me in, and I have family that lives close, so that cuts a lot of my expenses. And LA is like costs an arm and a leg too. So yeah, especially more than ever.
California in general costs an arm. Mm-hmm. There is nothing that is not overpriced in California.
Exactly. So that's the only reason why I was able to like wing that, because if I would have gone to either of the PAXs, is like I don't have family in either of those cities, so it would have been a more expensive cost. So,
although Boston is not overly far from where your sister lives. I mean, I'm not saying it's like driving distance, but it's
I know, but it's closer.
I mean? It's closer than LA.
Yes, 100%.
But it's also much further for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so then on our headlines, I got a few written down here, but we can actually probably skip a couple of these. Certainly, there's at least two big ones I want to talk about. The first one, and this will be new because we didn't get to talk about it yesterday, is about the reviews for Doom coming out today. Now, to be clear, I had zero doubt that this game was going to be good. To be honest with you, if anything, the reviews were actually maybe a little bit lower than I expected, but not much, just by like a couple points here or there. But I had not followed it as closely as I normally would have followed a Doom game, because I mean I knew I was going to get it. It wasn't like it mattered, but like I knew about the shield and all that stuff. I was not sure kind of the level, the number of weapons that you get, but I actually was like there's a hell of a lot in this one. There's even more than in Eternal. And I will say, from what I watched a handful of reviews. I watched Luke's, I watched IGN's, I watched someone else's. I don't remember who. Jampack Sam's. I think I watched one or two others. I definitely like what I'm seeing. It looks like a really, it looks like a very solid shooter. I am a little bit not sure how I feel about the shield. It's not that I mind having the shield. It's that I don't like what I've seen with watching the video reviews of the parrying, because so for those who don't know, when enemy shoots a projectile, it'll be either red or green. If it's red, I guess you can block it up to the shield has like a recharge meter or something like that. But then green, you can parry it and send it back. So when I watch it, I see people, it almost looks like a bullet hell shooter where they're avoiding the red to get in front of the green so they can parry it. And I'm like, oh, I don't like that at all. That's not what I want to be in Doom. But it looks cool how it functions as like a chainsaw, which we kind of expected when they showed the teeth on it and stuff like that. I figured that's what it would do. And everybody said that like throwing it's actually pretty cool, and the way that it functions from there. Okay, I don't know how much you heard and didn't hear there while you were on your call.
Yeah, I couldn't. I had to take my.
Okay, no problem. So basically, what I was saying was all the shooting looks good, all that stuff. The one hesitance that I do have, and actually this was something I was curious how it would be, watching the video reviews. So I don't know how much you have followed this and haven't, but apparently you can block red attacks and parry green attacks from enemies projectiles.
Right? That was at the developer direct. I remember.
I knew you could parry. I just didn't know it was only certain ones. But the issue here comes in from every video review I watched. This was every one of them, not just one or two. It looked like they were playing at certain points. It would look like they were playing a bullet hell shooter because they're running around the red ones to get in front of the green ones so they can parry it back. I don't like that at all. That doesn't feel like Doom to me.
Yeah, that could
everything else about it I'm okay with. It's that specifically I'm like, yeah, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, the thing that annoys me because this is kind of like why I personally like vibed more with 2016 than Eternal, despite Eternal looking and playing better, is that I feel like they become too cute at forcing one way to solve things into their gameplay design, that I feel doing that bullet hell of like having to get a specific thing to parry kind of falls into a little bit that the Doom Eternal ethos of we're making a combat puzzle and there's only one way to do this combat puzzle. And the thing I liked about Doom 2016 was that in the 3 times that I replayed that game, the first time I just used my regular shotgun, the other time I intentionally used not that shotgun to be like, could I finish the game using my the other weapons? I felt like it was more about just presenting the arena and giving you the expression of you use the weapons to figure this out and be as uncreative or creative as possible. It's kind of like a character action game. Sometimes that some people like in normal difficulties that they would play like a Devil May Cry and then just keep stinging attack on people and doing that. But then like people that really want to take advantage of the whole thing and be like, if you really want to, like either dial up the difficulty and then like use your entire arsenal like to your way, or because otherwise it's like I gotta say this, like when it's just forced into one way, it's more, to me it's like replayability to me like takes a tumble because I know that I've already solved the puzzle at this point. So it's like I know that for this demon, the secondary of this weapon is what takes care of that and all that, and just constantly be like in a circle. I am less a fan of that, and I do. And from what I've heard from Eric, who is reviewing it over at SG, he says that it still has some of that ethos. It's just a slower game. So I was like, okay.
So while Alex takes this call, I'll kind of jump to our next topic of discussion, I suppose. And that is the other certainly big news of this week, which is the Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer dropping. And I would say to say that it's fairly mind-blowing is probably an understatement. Anybody that's watched it, I mean, the amount of detail that is put into every single frame of everything that they do, and every animation is just impeccably well done. The detail of early when you see Jason and you see him go to walk in like the house he's working on, or maybe his house, I don't know. The detail on his back is incredible, like the way that his muscles move when he's walking and stuff like that. Like this is something that truly only 2 studios in the entire world can do, and Rockstar is one of them, and Naughty Dog is the other. I know Silkenin is not a fan of GTA, and that's fine, but there is no way anybody can look at that trailer without intentionally wanting to say they don't like it or whatever and not be impressed by it, because it's just leaps and bounds above everything else that's been released so far this generation. And my guess is the only other thing I'm talking about GTA now, Alex, just know, the only other thing that I think by the end of the generation that will even be remotely close to this in terms of impressiveness will be Intergalactic.
Yes. If we're talking visual quality, yes.
Yeah. Nothing else is going to even be on anywhere near the fidelity level of those two games.
Objectively, for that kind of like a very stylized hyper realism, is just Rockstar and Naughty Dog, kind of like at the top of the pack.
But the two of their just attention to the most small little details is just simply unmatched by anybody else in the industry. There's nobody else that's even remotely close.
Yeah. And it's like I rewatched a couple times the GTA 6 trailer today because it's just something, especially now like post, it is actually a base PS5 like version that we're showing it. It's just I kept like just getting every frame. I was like, this is insane. That this is base truly, PS5 quality. It's just absolutely madness.
I think it was Hogue that posted something that said it pretty good. He basically said like Rockstar's out here posting PS7 games right now. And like this looks better than what I would have expected a next generation game to look like at launch. That is how unfathomably good this game looks.
Yeah, but I also feel that also speaks to how plateaued with visual quality because graphics have gotten so good for a while that it has taken just very few like things to pop, for things to be like this. That is really impressive visually. Like Horizon Forbidden West, Burning Shore specifically was like an eye-watering holy shit. Like like the final boss in that one, I was like, this feels more like what I expect out of like something next gen.
Right.
The Jedi Survivor like big battle against the like big robot thing that you're kind of like teleporting and all of that, kind of like that kind of showed me like scale with the speed of like the SSD kind of moving your arms. Like that was another like, okay, this the icon battles of FF16, especially Titan and Bahamut's another one that's like, ooh, really eye popping.
Actually, I would say Bahamut and the final boss when you're fighting it in a similar. Yeah. Well, I didn't say who it was, but okay.
Exactly. Sorry. Like even just know there's something called Ultima. It's the ultimate boss. It's the ultimate boss.
Even just saying that really doesn't spoil much of anything. It's just a name.
Exactly. But and Ultima's been a name for many Final Fantasy. It's a weapon, people.
Right.
But then PC version Cyberpunk with all the ray tracing, path tracing on, it's another one. That's 4 things. Like when I really think about it, like then visually, I feel like I've been more focused on performances and art styles more than kind of like visual fidelity. This is one of the first times that I'm like, this is why we have not been having for a while in this generation, because graphics have gotten so good. It's like other things are gonna go more, gonna get better.
It's that and something else. When Sony and Microsoft both promised that everything would now be 60 frames a second, and now all of a sudden, how many people that did it for decades, they can't play anything at 30?
And
I mean, there's plenty of games that should be 60. I mean, I've always said a racing sim has to be 60. A first-person shooter, if it's quickly, if it's fast-paced, should be at 60. Stuff like that. But not every game needs to be at 60. And I'm telling you right now, I don't care what platform you play it on, and that includes the PS5 Pro. You better be prepared because this game's not going to run at 60.
Yeah, it's like it would be wild if it does.
The Digital Foundry has already come out. Like I think it was Alex Battaglia said it. Like he expects it to probably be a higher resolution on Pro. He expects to probably have even better shadow quality. But he just said and they've said this from day one. So this is nothing new. They said like the way the GTA works, it is going to be very CPU heavy, and you're not going to get that improved from the Pro. So maybe they'll give you like a 40 option on Pro if you have a TV that supports it, but you're not going to get a 60 frames per second mode. I will be amazed, and if you do, it's going to be like Assassin's Creed Shadows, and you're going to probably lose what makes the game special. But the fact that the base PS5 version has all the ray trace global illumination and stuff like that tells me that they probably won't remove it because Rockstar cares about the image. They're not like, if they would have to have that removed to make it run at 60, they're not going to give you the option to run it at 60. It's that simple.
Yeah, and like a game like Jedi Survivor, launch era Jedi Survivor, it was like they baked the ray tracing so inherent to the visual makeup of that game that they were being so stubborn and trying to remove like ray tracing, illumination, and kind of shadowing, and just the actual rendering of their image. That it was like that performance mode is just simply unusable. It was like barely a performance mode.
Yeah, it basically ran like 5 frames a second faster than quality mode, and it's like. It's like, well, unfortunately, this is a game where timing mattered, so you did want the 60 frames per second mode there, but it was so unstable that you couldn't use it, and you really should have stuck with quality mode because of that, because it looked much, much worse in performance because of that.
Exactly, because it's like you're lowering the resolution. It was like 800 something p, so it was like might as well just beef up the resolution because you're not gaining much. It took them almost an entire year, or close like 7 to 8 months to rework the visual makeup of that game and performance for that to work. And I don't know that Rockstar will want to I feel it's so inherently to the look of the game, how the reflections in the windshields look, and everything, just kind of how the image is in sync and everything visually is like. If you play Red Dead right now, that game is at 30. It's such a perfect 30 that your eye will trick you that it's 60.
And when games are extremely cinematic like that, and again, I mean, Red Dead is also intentionally kind of slow in its gameplay. So really, the 30 works. It would be nice to have a 60 mode, but it's not the end of the world that it doesn't have it.
Yeah.
But now GTA will probably be a bit faster and a bit more bombastic. But the reality is, once again, Rockstar care about visual fidelity to the point that if they I'll tell you that if Rockstar thinks that they have to lower the quality too much to make it run at 60, they're simply not going to give you the option. They're just going to say,
they have not done that for Red Dead.
That's right. They are simply going to say you are going to play this at 30, and you're going to like it that way.
Yeah.
So everybody that cries about this, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in a year now.
Yeah, and I like that Digital Foundry mentioned that the resolution they found in their in their finance is 1152p. That's
a pretty common resolution.
Exactly, especially when you're doing ray tracing. Is the same thing with UE5.
Yeah. But that's that's a very good resolution for the base PS5. So my guess is you'll be looking at either 1440p or probably more like an 1800p resolution for Pro.
Yeah.
But again, I really do think you're no matter what you do, you're running at 30 here. I don't think there's going to be
and I think objectively, it's always going to the Pro at launch is going to be the best way where you can play that game.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
But I'm the most curious for that Series S version. Joe from our show last night said the same thing. That's going to be the biggest proof in the pudding, because something that I couldn't quite say it back then, because we have to also keep in consideration that this is what time and money gives you. They have enough time to do that. So it's of course, someone that takes this damn long to make this game, someone that can afford to do that, because they have an endless money sink in GTA Online.
They had an unlimited budget, basically. Yeah.
Because they found a way to constantly keep the money flowing without having to release a new game. So they had that advantage to put all that money into the screen. So it's I want to see what that does for the Series S, which, if you look at the Doom, the Dark Ages, Digital Foundry, review, and you look at that Series S version, that's jumping from Xbox 360 to Xbox One, in the clarity visual. It's that thing is running so decrepit at this point, 5 years into the gen. It's that one needed a mid-gen refresh more than the Series X, which is still kind of if you're able to tap into the Series X, still has power within it. I say this generation has not been really tapped. And that's
I think Grand Theft Auto shows that.
Exactly. It's that's why it's more impressive, because that's what shows it that this generation hasn't really been tapped. I'm also very excited to see a game like Death Stranding 2, which got its previews this week too, and getting to see a lot of that. It's how Decima has evolved, from game to game, and that game also looks I feel that's gonna be the high fidelity looker of the year.
And it's not taking away from Death Stranding, because Death Stranding looks beautiful for sure.
Yeah. But it's less demanding.
That's exactly good. That's exactly it. That is a much easier game to have much higher fidelity, because most of what you're doing is just modeling terrain, and when you are modeling AI and stuff like that, which obviously AI is quite demanding on the CPU. It's not much of it. It's so I mean, it's not taking away from Death Stranding at all. I just mean it's a different ball game altogether, right? What GTA is doing, when you take into consideration how it looks versus what you could pretty safely assume is going to be how it works. Well, I mean, in how fluid and realistic the city is almost assuredly going to be. It's hard to imagine it can look like that. Generally, that's why I think Hogue was right. That looks like an open world game from two generations
forward.
Not even next generation. That looks like a 2 generation ahead game.
And think even a game as beautiful as Cyberpunk, how much it suffered and had to cut back on a bunch of AI to make that game work. Based on even how it was promised, because doing this kind of urban environment at high fidelity, not that easy. Even the almighty CDPR learned that the hard way, and brutally 5 years ago. Good thing for their the redemption story afterwards, but it's there's a reason why this kind of urban environment is not tried as often, because if you want it to look as realistic and as ambitious as possible, it's walking New York, people. How many people are there? Try to recreate that 1-to-1.
Thousands in your vision at any given time. There are thousands of people, which is why you obviously can never actually have a properly populated thing to represent it, because number one, there's no CPU that can render that. But number two, you also wouldn't be able to move in the world.
And that's kind of the beauty about the Spider-Man games. Eventually, kind of how they smartly compromised, how they're cutting back on dense populations as you're flying around, but because you're flying around so fast, and they're catching your eye in detail in the specific areas they're looking. You're not looking how they're nip and tucking for everything to kind of present itself well. GTA, based on what Red Dead is, that they had so much happening at all times without you even looking, without them being cheeky or smart about because you're not looking there, we're not going to render the character that's kind of mowing the lawn, the lawn back there. It's no, there is a game that's literally living and breathing that doesn't care about your existence. It's like the game. It's like it's like an Oblivion, kind of like we were talking about Oblivion like a few weeks ago. That is like that was the first time that you learned and played an open world, that you knew the characters were on their own clock. They were like doing their own things. It's not a revolving around you. It's like GTA is that with extra detail and more ambition and more polish. Like, and Bethesda is like, if it breaks, it breaks, but at least let's tell the illusion that it's a living world. So, but May 26, 2026.
It's gonna be the biggest entertainment release in history by probably tenfold. I would guess pretty safely tenfold.
Yeah. That month, Avengers Doomsday comes out, Mandalorian and Grogu afterward, and then 4 days later, GTA 6.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if anybody, maybe Mandalorian and Grogu. I don't think anybody's gonna care about either one of those movies.
People are not gonna care because like you're like playing with fire, anticipating people are gonna care for 3 seasons of a TV show that's been like irregularly aired to go watch a movie follow up.
And when it comes to Avengers, you're talking about a property that's a shadow of its what it once was, because they've beaten it to the ground so bad.
Oh yes, and not properly built to what they're doing with this one. So so GTA 6 is a big ticket item of May. But if you're just talking about just brand things, it's like a new Marvel, a new Star Wars, and a new GTA are kind of like packed in the same month. That's still like, just from the outside looking in, that's like nerd heaven.
Yeah.
Despite like if you look deeper, you know that it's not as impressive as it would have been a few years back.
Right. So the other news I have here written down isn't all that really relevant. So we'll skip to our main topic of the episode here. We don't have to go overly in depth in this, but I just thought it might be something fun to talk about. We're going to talk about something that we liked and something that we didn't like. We can either do it as each primary console, or probably better would be each generation.
How far back are we going?
I was starting, even though they're technically 2 different generations, I was starting with NES, SNES, and Genesis. That's technically 2 generations, but the reality is that's kind of the beginning of where games went from there. I'd say we lump them together.
Yeah, I didn't own Genesis and NES. My dad did, but he didn't have it after, like, when I was born. Like, when I was born, I had the SNES. So
the only one I had of the 3 was the Genesis. So
okay.
But well, if I had to give a like, I mean, number one, it's certainly the fact that it's pretty much what got me into gaming. I mean, you know, Sonic fanboy right here and all that stuff. But also, I mean, this is looking back now but the reality was the Super Nintendo was pretty historic when it came to the JRPGs that came to it. I mean, you had probably 3 of the very greatest of all time. So
Chrono Trigger, FF4 and 6. So people argue Super Mario RPG too.
2 out of 3 there, but yeah. I'm not the biggest Chrono Trigger fan, but
but it's just like, if you want to talk about like objective kind of like what people like reference to, it's like that one is included. So, but I'm an FF6 guy. So
yeah, FF6 amazing.
So yeah, I like it. Like it was great for JRPGs. I love the platformers of that era too.
Sure, absolutely.
The thing that I disliked, and this also kind of like goes for the next Nintendo console that followed immediately, was that when you plug in a cartridge, more often than not, when you turn the console, it wouldn't fucking work. Like
that was only the NES. That wasn't the Super Nintendo.
No, it's Super Nintendo, and the N64 had this thing where I would turn it. I was like, okay, really? Grab it, blow it, clean it.
I don't remember that being an issue in anything other than the NES.
I had that issue. My friends all had that issue. I don't know if it was like the one Scott that came here to El Salvador. I don't care. It's like that always happened. It was like,
it must have been that ocean air.
Probably, but it was like constantly having to blow those cartridges and having to be like turn it and making sure that I like the power button went up like with enough power so that it could actually turn it on. I remember that. It was like that was the thing that made the PS1 eventually like so impressive, because that one just worked. So that was my least favorite thing of the SNES, but I love the catalog of the SNES. Like I love Donkey Kong Country 2 is my adoration. I love that soundtrack. I love that vibe. I love that.
Donkey Kong Country is
amazing. Like that 1 and 2 specifically. DK3 not so much. And Super Mario World got me into game. That was my big like, oh, you're into gaming now. We talked about it in our favorites.
So. Sonic 3 and Knuckles was better than Super Mario World. People need to accept that. But actually, it's something I didn't mention that I actually really like, and Sega's not given enough credit for this, I don't think, but they had some interesting ideas when it came to like the modularity of the Genesis. Like they didn't do much with them, but you had the 32X and the Sega CD. There might have even been something else that I don't remember, but like
Yeah,
that
the
was some
N64
cool ideas they didn't do
the
much with.
N64 was the only one that tried copying a little bit of the modularity with like the red expansion pack they inserted like right at the front of the console. And since then, like modularity has not been prevalent in consoles. So
what about things we didn't like there? Certainly
for
reliability, the same generation. Reliability. I mean, the NES was infamously unreliable.
Yeah. Like to me, like the thing that I didn't like just was just that cartridge problem because I always knew that.
I mean, that was a major problem with it. It was because the contacts didn't close in properly. Like I know you said about blowing it, which everybody did, but they actually said that did absolutely nothing.
It's so funny.
It was the fact that when you would reset it rather, then the contacts would close on it properly.
Yeah, it's like a cartridges, man. I don't miss them. I don't miss them at all.
And also, and now this I believe is only a what's the word here? Actually, I guess you said in El Salvador, you guys get basically your stuff comes from the United States, right? When it comes to games, like so you would have NTSC region coding.
Yeah,
okay.
we don't do PAL. Fuck PAL.
Okay. Well, yeah, definitely, but also like Japan has NTSCJ, or yeah,
TSCJ, huh?
I don't know exactly how this worked, but I think it's pretty safe to say that the Super Nintendo was significantly uglier than the Super Famicom. I do not know what version Europe got, if they got one at all, because Europe didn't get jack shit at that time.
Yes.
I'm guessing they probably got the same one as the West, but the PAL version of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely got the NTSC version, which is like the more like blocky one, because I know the Famicom had more of a style to it. So
it was also color different. It was purple. Whereas it was red, I believe. In Japan.
Yeah, red, blue, gray. It had like four colors.
And like the controller, all the buttons on the Western controller were purple. They were yellow, red, blue, and green. I think it was on the Super on the Famicom in Japan.
Yeah. And there was something about the SNES controller that just fit well in my hand. And I appreciate how long that cable was, because cables got so much shorter. It's like
especially Nintendo cables. Yeah. Nintendo started giving you 2 feet of a cable.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like with the N64, immediately, it was like a much shorter cable. So we can move to N64.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have a lot to say about that generation. So we'll move on to PS1 and N64. There's definitely a lot to like here, as the PS1 might be pound for pound the best JRPG system of all time.
Yeah, PS1 was the winner out of this two. It's like that's not like
I also included the Saturn, but the reality is I have very little to contribute when it comes to Saturn.
I didn't have a Saturn either.
Yeah, I didn't either. But I will say things I didn't like about this generation would be the Nintendo 64. That was just a bad console. I had this discussion last week, if you remember.
No, I know. Like, and the N64 one is like, it has very specific, like, good memories to it. It's just objectively was not a good console. It's like
a library controller of all time too.
Yes, it's like the words, like there's like no logic to like, oh yeah, you grab it from the dick and over here, but it's like
you held like this. Yeah, it was so stupid.
And it's like barely any game used the D-pad properly and all that. So it's like the thing I do like about the N64 was that despite like how bad it was, like there were particular games that, like it or not, were like trendsetters for 3D gaming that eventually got built upon later.
Dare say the one that everyone says, because it was not as revolutionary as it is given credit for.
Is the one that started it.
No, it is not. Oh, well, okay, not that one. I thought you were going to say Ocarina of Time. I'll say because Ocarina of Time was really not that revolutionary, and for some reason it is credited as being.
They credited it that way. They credited for deceit targeting, and
that wasn't created by them. Yeah. No, it wasn't. It existed for years on PC.
Yeah,
and so they just created a new freaking name for it, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, they created this."
Yeah. So what's interesting is that like there's a lot of people that consider a few N64 games like some of their favorite games of all time. But
those people are crazy, but they do exist. I agree.
Yes, in many numbers, surprisingly, but it's like that definitely like the like it looks so primitive considering how much more improved the one that came after was. And I would say, like, to give N64 credit, that was the first proper 4-player multiplayer console. Like
it was.
So it's like if you had a lot of memories of playing GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Destruction Derby, Conker's Bad Fur Day, this 4-player, or even Mario Kart 64 with Battleman, all that, it's like the N64 out of the two machines was probably the better one for local multiplayer. Was the first one that you could plug in 4 controllers on. Smash Brothers also is like that craze was born there, even though it got really like popular within its next entry. It's like a lot of stepping stones, but it's just like more like it had to. I see the N64 more as it had to walk for many other things to soar. But like look by upon itself. Like when I see the library that's like there in the Nintendo Switch Online service, the expansion pack, and you see how little it is, it's like that's when you realize it's like there was barely anything here because everyone defected to the PS1.
Which was actually interesting considering Sony was a newcomer. And so it really, I mean, it was Final Fantasy VII. That was the game that put PlayStation on the map. But that comes to Sony being the only ones. I guess technically Sega was too, but really Sony being the ones that were smart enough to go, we're going to discs. We're not using cartridges anymore.
Because they knew that disc was like the bigger, like they saw the storage capabilities that disc was allowing them. That was why Nintendo was gonna, like, if you remember, like PlayStation was born out of Nintendo sliding Sony out of like, because
it was a Super Nintendo attachment originally, yes.
And then suddenly at the last minute, without even telling Sony, they were like, we're going with Philips, and that didn't even like materialize for anything. And then PlayStation was like, we did all this R&D for nothing. Nah, we can do stuff, and that's how they did it. And look where we are now.
And truthfully, like, not being a Sony fanboy, I'm glad that Sony shoved that right up Nintendo's ass, because that is a truly dick move to do something like that. Like you have somebody spend, in the early 90s millions of dollars on R&D, and then you pull the plug on it at the last minute, and damn well Nintendo didn't give them any kind of refund on it. So I am glad that they got their shit shoved back in, because they deserved it for being assholes about that.
Yeah, and that's probably like a watershed moment for the industry, because that PlayStation pushed the industry forward. Like they really did. Despite the cartridge still giving more memory for specific graphics, is like with PS1s in particular, actual cutscenes finally could happen again. Like could actually start happening.
Metal Gear never could have happened on Nintendo 64. Never.
Yeah, like it's like it paved the way to Metal Gear. Metal Gear is the franchise that showed that cinematic gaming could happen in game, like in games. They were the progenitors for that. It's like, and I don't care that there are a lot of people that like putting Kojima. He loves doing movies instead of game, but it's like Metal Gear proved how the medium could grow.
Do you like games with cinematic stories? If you do, you better kiss Kojima's ass, because he's the reason.
He's the one that he's the one that kind of like, and not only just cinematic stories that mattered. The beauty of Metal Gear Solid is that story is so deep, and that's
what I mean. Is it wasn't reading text on a screen like JRPGs were at the time. You were actually watching cinematics play out. Like,
and
if it wasn't for Kojima, you wouldn't have that. Like, he was the one that pioneered that.
And full on voice acting, because like Final Fantasy VII was like, do you read that story? They told a fully fledged story, like Final Fantasy was telling in 4 and 6, but it was like they finally like having more presentational power for the story to feel like more properly presented. That's what PlayStation did. What I disliked about the PS1 was the chip would stop reading, and then you had to flip that console like it said for it to read this sometimes.
See, I actually had an original PS1, so I didn't have that problem.
Yeah,
really? I thought that was the refresh that had that problem.
The original also had that problem.
Really?
So, yeah.
I actually never had that happen, so I didn't think it was. I thought it was the refresh that had the issue with that.
Yes, and also it introduced loading, because we didn't have as much loading in cartridges, so it's like a necessary evil for advancements. But if your disc was slightly scratched, boy, I remember staring at those Mega Man loading screens. I was like, did this get stuck? I'm going to play, but it's like I did love the controller refresh when they introduced the DualShock, because remember when it was just the D-pad one? It's like
also Ape Escape. Yeah. Bring freaking Ape Escape back, Sony. What are you doing? Ape Escape is so good.
Yes, I love Ape Escape. It's such an ingenious platform.
I love it. To this day, a 42-year-old man, I still laugh like a freaking middle schooler when I see those stupid monkeys running around with their pants on and their dumb little hat with the thing on. They are so funny. Like even in the one level in Astrobot when you do it, and
I had a smile. I had a smile on my face with that level.
Actually, never mind. What I'm talking about, you didn't do in that. When you use you always had the stun baton, or whatever. When you hit them, and it makes that like sound, like that's so funny to me. I just find that to be hilarious, and it's like I cannot understand why they let that die. It's popular too. It sold really well in Japan, and it did well here.
Yeah, and they got Team Asobo now. Like they can pop out a game like really quickly, and they understand a lot of these properties, so maybe they can do it through them, or because
maybe
right now
Bandai Namco.
Bandai Namco has this like new this new partnership with Sony that they're taking those unused IPs, and I'm like, yeah, do that because way
I love Ape Escape. I would love to have an Ape Escape 3 that didn't run like crap.
Yes,
Ape Escape 3 is very good, but
another thing I disliked about the PS1 was also the first time that they had to introduce that you needed to buy a memory card to save games, whereas a lot of cartridges had save states within them. So
although actually I'm sorry, that did come out before the N64 because the N64 you did as well, but the PS1 did come out first. You're right.
Yes, and there were a few games that you could save within the cartridge, like the Zelda games could save within the cartridge. The Mario could save it within the cartridge. There were a few that you needed that memory card they put behind your controller to do that. So there were a few that needed extra on, but on PS1 you needed the memory card. If not, like you couldn't save at all. So it was like it added that extra expense that obviously eventually when we got to hard drives that kind of got taken care of.
Yeah, although they created their own level of problems, which we'll get at.
Yes.
So next up we have honestly probably the single most important console generation of all time.
PS2,
the PS2, Dreamcast, GameCube, and Xbox generation. With the exception of the GameCube, which is not to shit talk it, but of the other three, I would say each one of those introduced something pretty damn important, like to the future of the industry.
Yes, because GameCube was so unrevolutionary to me. Like GameCube was just fixing the mistakes of the N64, and the only thing that it did was that pound for pound, like if you look at a few games, some games look better on GameCube than on PS2. Like because of like a graphics chips that they used. It was the last time
the GameCube was more powerful than the PS2, but
and it came out
more limited in many ways too.
So
the GameCube and original Xbox came out 2 days apart.
Yeah, it's wild to think of. And Xbox came out first, if I remember correctly. GameCube was the last one.
I believe that's correct. Yes, I believe Xbox came out on like a Wednesday and GameCube was a Friday.
Yeah, so it was like, and it had one of the more visually the GameCube had one of the more visually impressive launch games with Rogue Squadron 2, Rogue Leader. I remember that because I was like, this looks so insane.
Well, I mean, Xbox had Halo, which I would say was actually even more impressive looking at the time. Not so much now, but at the time it was real impressive.
Yeah, I think I like the look of Rogue Leader more because it was a more recognizable, like so recognizably Star Wars. So it's like, and then Halo was a more foreign in a way, but it's a more important game.
It's certainly more important, no doubt about that. But I would say on a technical level, it's not even a competition that Halo was far more impressive because Halo actually had for its time, it had very impressive lighting effects. I specifically remember, so in the later Halo games, when you would use your flashlight, if you had one, it was always like shoulder mounted or on its helmet. In Halo 1, it was actually mounted on the guns. So
you could see it in the gun.
Well, you could see it, but it also would move with the gun. Like so if you would melee, like if you had the assault rifle and you meleeed, it would move.
The light would disappear.
But it also actually cast proper shadows. Like if you were in a dark room and shined a light on an enemy, it would put a shadow back there, which at the time was not an overly common thing because that required a lot of processing power that they didn't have back then.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I mean, Xbox Live changed everything.
Oh yes, like it's like it brought both first-person shooters and online gaming into into focus. Like, look how important that genre is not nowadays. Like that was the birth of that place. Though going back to the Rogue Leader of it all, when I think about it, it's like that was the first time I noticed 60 frames per second on console. Like, or when I really noticed something, because then the next time that I would notice it was MGS2 on PS2. So it was like there was a few times that a lot in that generation that they were trying to like improve frame rates. I didn't know what frame rate was. I just knew that it ran smooth. That then like more games.
As a PC player, I did so
exactly. So and I wasn't. So that was the first time that. So I think that's kind of like what's interesting. Depending on how like entrenched you were in the PC ecosystem, the thing that a lot of people found impressive in consoles come from straight out of ignorance, including the whole thing with GoldenEye. Because it's like you played most first-person shooters on PC. Like GoldenEye's not even remotely in the caliber, but because it was on console, it was like you didn't have anything.
It was actually what I had said last week was like people that only played consoles thought that GoldenEye was so revolutionary, and anybody that played on PC was like, no, it's actually pretty basic compared to what we're playing. Like,
primitive.
You figured that would have been what year? About 97, somewhere around there.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a little game called Half-Life that was out on PC in 97, which in every single imaginable way took a shit on GoldenEye. Every single way. And that includes the multiplayer. Like Half-Life, essentially, with all the modding and stuff like that,
98.
created all. Was it 98? I thought it was 97.
Yeah, it was 98. I googled it. Yeah,
that was a year after then.
Yeah, it was like it's like they always call 1998 one of the greatest years in gaming.
Because you had some of the biggest IPs of all time were came out.
Then, because it was like that year was RE2, Metal Gear. Yes, Ocarina of Time was also that year. You got to like just in the objective, like what people listed in Half-Life. They list those games there.
Yeah. So. Well, Half-Life is way above every one of those. I can tell you that. Like that includes an importance because like Half-Life changed shooters too. But anyway,
it made them more story driven, or like it showed that stories could be like very very important in that genre. So the PS2 obviously came out first out of the big three. Obviously Dreamcast
Dreamcast was in 99, yeah, so it came out first.
Yes. And the thing that I even mentioned it like in the chat that I mentioned last week, like I always see the Dreamcast, like, the good thing that it did was that it was too early and a lot of the baton was passed over to the Xbox. They attempted online play there. The controller, very similar, very close.
Yeah, the Xbox controller was just a variation of the Dreamcast controller.
Exactly. So it was an Xbox before the Xbox, basically. So it was like,
but again, I mean, Peter Morgan over at Xbox, you could see what he brought over some of his know-how from Sega, and they implemented it in the Xbox rather. That said, I will say, and this is looking squarely at the PS2, which, I mean, pound for pound, you could probably say it's probably the best console of all time. I think it's pretty hard to argue that, but
yeah, it's like the most robust console ever.
We certainly know someone who does, but it's a pretty brain dead argument in my opinion. But the PS2 also had it was one of the first most like widespread reliability issues, right? And actually, what it ended up being is when you found out later, it actually was a fairly simple issue that I don't know how Sony never fixed it. It had like a gear that just would, over time, it wouldn't recenter. It would come off center by like 1 degree, and it would be enough that the laser had a hard time reading things. Now they obviously fixed that with the like Generation 2 and Generation 3 of them, the slim ones.
Slim.
However, those did, I understand this is only used for one game, but those took away the ability to put the hard drive in your PS2, which I did actually use. Like
for Final Fantasy 11, right?
Final Fantasy 11 was what used it, but I actually used it for more than that. I actually did use it as like to dump off a memory card. Like it got to the point I was able to use one memory card because I could dump everything that I wasn't actively using onto that hard drive, and then just keep swapping back and forth. It actually worked pretty well. Oh, that was a very expensive memory card at the time. Yes. That was like $100 as opposed to 15 or whatever they were.
Yeah, hard drives were not like easy to get, and also DVDs were very expensive, and PS2 was like the cheapest DVD available. That helped a lot in proliferating that console like early on. Like that was the DVD player. I remember. My first DVD that I ever watched, The Phantom Menace, in my PS2. I'll never forget.
I don't know what the first one I watched was.
Matrix.
No, I don't know what it was. It's been so long. I don't remember what the first one I watched was.
But I just remember because I was such a big Star Wars guy. So that was like the first, like my dad bought it and made a big event because he was such a big video audiophile of like having the big screen and the big side, like the big sounds and all of that. So it was like just blasting all that. It's like, and those movies were always so, regardless of what you think about the story, it's like just from a technical level, they were always kind of like the showpieces for hardware. Sure. You know, how you put them. So it was fun watching it that way.
I'm a prequel defender, so you don't have to sell me.
Yeah, I'm a good company here. We're against the sequels over here.
Oh yes, but most people that hate the prequels, when they tell me why, I'm like, your opinion is just straight up stupid.
Yes,
it's just simply not what you grew up with, so you don't like it. That's what it boils down to.
Exactly.
So then now we move on to where it gets pretty interesting because there's a lot to like and a lot to dislike moving forward now.
Yeah.
You got PS3, 360, and Wii. First and foremost, well, for 2 out of the 3 at least, we have the introduction of
HD,
required HD, which at the time, HD was not so much of a thing. When you saw a game in standard definition and you saw it in high definition, it was like opening your eyes for the first time.
Yes. Putting glasses on for the first time.
You try to explain it or have somebody explain it to you, and it's like, well, that sounds stupid. That doesn't matter. And then you saw something like, I always say the one that made me go, holy hell, was Eternal Sonata on the Xbox 360. It was a bright and vibrant game, right? And what was her name? I can't remember her name. they're all music terms, but the main girl who's on the cover, right? She wore like this frilly skirt, and it, like when you played it in HD, which is hilariously just 720p now, so it would look terrible by today's standards, but at the time it was amazing. You could see individual stitches and stuff like that, whereas you play it in standard definition, and this also created its own level of issue, which if you remember the original Dead Rising, you could not read text. Yes. because they were designing it for 720 and you were running it in 480. Sometimes you could make it out, but like Dead Rising, for example, you didn't get voice when the one guy called you on the radio, and it was small, and it was only there for a couple seconds. You almost could never read it. You almost had no idea what he was saying because it would come off the screen before you could read it. Not everything had this problem, but some things definitely did. And Dead Rising was probably the most infamous example.
I know that GTA 4 was like the breaking point for a lot of people. That was the game where I was like, I need an HD TV now.
But by that point, I had an HD TV. So was it bad there? Was it hard to read or anything?
Yes, and I know it because it was like a lot of people held on to SD for like as long as I barely remember 2008 was kind of like the point where everyone was like, enough. Like we need HD, and the TV started to get more affordable because they were very expensive.
A year or two later, you couldn't even buy a standard definition TV anymore. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, at that point, an HD TV was $200, whereas if you were to find a standard definition TV, it was probably more expensive. Right? Because getting a CRT was the only way you were going to get a standard definition TV.
I remember my plasma because the first HD TV that I got was a plasma of a company named Simtron. So it was a shitty. It was a shitty brand, but anyway, because it was the cheapest one at the time. We got it through credit in 2007. It was a plasma TV, and I'll never forget watching Fight Night Round 3, like the first jump of that game, like from those early 360.
Yeah, that was a big one, man. That was a big one.
It was like, holy moly, like this is nuts.
There were a handful of games that blew your mind. I mean, certainly Oblivion was one of them, and another one that we talk about every once in a while, but probably doesn't get credit. Exactly. Advanced Warfighter was mind blowing how good
it was. The trifecta. Those were the trifecta. Fight Night Round 3, Graw, and Oblivion. Of that spring 2006 360 lineup that took you through the summer. That was kind of like you're done with the launch titles. They look slightly better than like an Xbox game in some respects. In some ways, it's like sometimes they were not recognizable, like Gun, Activision's Gun.
It looked exactly the same, except it cost $10 more. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like there were a lot of those 360 games. I was like, this literally looks the same as the Xbox version. But that trifecta was the first one where you could go, okay, that's pretty interesting. It's like that's quite the leap. This is what next gen is, like both visually in Graw and scale, Oblivion, and visual quality, Fight Night. It was kind of like those three.
But then. This generation also brought what it was most well known for, which I've mentioned numerous times already, but it was especially prevalent here, a lack of reliability. Yes. I mean, the 360 will forever have the red ring of death, obviously.
As their asterisk.
But I'll be honest with you. Sony did not get enough heat for the yellow light of death.
Yes.
It was just as bad. 5 fucking times for me. 5.
Yeah, mine yellow light like 4 times until then I was like, fuck it, I'm buying a Slim. It's like
that's essentially what happens because I had I had a 20 gig originally, which
I had a 60. I had the backward
compatible. Hold on, just wait, I'm getting there. I had a 20 gig originally because I asked my grandmother to get it for me for Christmas and she did. But good old $5.99 USD, which is kind of funny by today's standards, but
yes,
whatever. Was a little much to ask for. So I was like, yeah, I'll get a 20 or whatever, not knowing that in 2 years there would be games you couldn't even install on it. It wasn't big enough. But anyway, so after a little while that yellow lighted, and thankfully, at the time I worked at GameStop, so I knew the trick when it came to the warranty or whatever. And at that time, they no longer even offered 20 gigs rather. So I updated to a 60. After a year or two, that yellow lighted. I was like, fuck. So I sent it in, got it back. By this point, I actually had put a bigger hard drive in. I probably put a 320 in at the time, something like that, right? And I downloaded all my stuff. I was playing it, yellow lighted. I was like, what the hell? I sent it back, got another one back. I set it up overnight to download everything. I woke up in the morning and it was yellow lighted. I never played a single game on that one. I called Sony and went nuts on the guy because he had the audacity to say to me something like, "Are you sure it's not your power?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm damn sure it's not my power."
Oh man,
that one yellow lighted. When I sent it back, the next guy I talked to was much less. He's like, "Look, I get it. You're running a lot of issues here." He's like. can we just talk you in this? Because they tried a few times to offer a slim, and I kept resisting. And I was like, you know what? At this point, I was like, I'm tired of doing this. I was like, yeah, just send me a slim. And I never had an issue with this. The slims did not have the problem. But the original George Foreman one, that was a massive problem, and for some reason nobody talked about it. Yes. And it was a way bigger deal on the PS3 when it happened than it was even a Red Ring, because on a Red Ring you could at least pop the hard drive off. A PS3, you could not take the hard drive out and swap it. You had to totally reformat it from the very beginning. So you lost everything. And that was pre cloud saves. This is why that's why I never beat Yakuza 3, because I got to I got to the very end and it yellow lighted, and I'm like, I cannot do this again. And it was not backed up anywhere. That's why I never beat Tales of the Abyss, because that was the first one. And if you remember when PS3 first came out, they had that little memory card adapter. You could pull data off of it. You could not put it back on. They later patched it and let you do it that way. I lost like 70 hours worth of Tales of the Abyss data. I'm like again, I can't do that again. I cannot do that again. Now I might be able to. At the time, I couldn't, though. So there's a whole bunch of games I never beat because I lost tens of hours of content from that. And but I was like, God damn it. I hated the fact that Sony did not get hate for that, because they truly
because it was like the Red Ring was so prevalent. It was like the percentage was 10% of 10% of people in PS3 like got yellow lights. 58% of people got Red Rings in 360. So it was like yellow lights was kind of like like the reliability, like the most reliable out of the 3 consoles was the Wii. Literally, it was like that was kind of like the meme. Like there was like, you got your HD machines, but it's like they come with the problems. But the 360 was the most. And I would say, to their credit, is like the slim refreshes for both of those machines was kind of like what fixed the reliability, like going forward for them. Unfortunately, for PS3, was like the original.
It removed everything you liked about it. Yeah, it removed all your backwards compatibility and everything.
Because that's wild to think that the PS3 really was like a full-on PS1 and PS2.
It had. I think the Slim could do PS1, but it could not do PS2. Yeah, it had an actual PS2 guts inside of it, because it wasn't emulating it. It actually was natively running PS2 games.
Yes. And it's unfortunate that because they cut it off and they didn't get too much flack of cutting it off, because a lot of people were just so happy that the PS3 could become so available. That's where they got into the stupid mindset of like, oh, look, people don't care that we remove backwards compatibility at this point. But it's like, no. People just cared that now they could finally buy the fucking console after being like $300 too expensive. That got like Slim got them finally to a price it should have been for like I'll never forget that Slim in 2009, the one that not the George Foreman one that slide, the one that I still have that one. That one, so the PS, right here. The PS that was when the PS3 finally took off. 2006 to 2009, if you're in PS3 land, was rough times. You lost exclusive games that were third party because they went over on 360. Most of the time on PS3, if you got the PS3 version instead of 360, it was a worse version. It was rare for you to get a version that was actually like equal on PS3.
Remember Bayonetta on PS3?
Yeah, Bayonetta was like
version of Bayonetta was rough.
Yes, a complete disaster that was missing texture detail compared to the 360. It was like it looked night and day.
And it had insanely long load times compared to the 360. Like Bayonetta, if you went into the menu, it had like a 5-second load time.
Yeah, it's wild to think about. And PS3, you needed to install because it used Blu-ray, which, to be fair to them, they were very forward-thinking in that way, because eventually they also, bringing down the price of the PS3, they were one of the most affordable Blu-ray players, and for a little time, the best 3D player when 3D TVs were like a thing. So it was like, that eventually caught up to them in a positive way, but early on was like, if you're on 360, your DVD discs of the games, because they still use DVD, pop it in the console, starts immediately. You don't need to install. Eventually, they passed the 360's OS so that you could install some games to kind of like improve on load times. And a game like Gears of War 2 actually fixed the pop-in issues, because it was like getting that already preloaded, but it was an option to install. In PS3, you always had to install, and there were some horribly long install times sometimes. I remember Devil May Cry 4 on PS3. It was like 30 minutes. 30-minute install, and the 360 version was like immediate. And I think that game also looked slightly better on 360, which was
I believe it looked better on PS3, but only slightly.
It's like
because it was one of those ones that originally was announced for PS3, and then they announced that it was multi-platform.
Yeah, it's like I've heard it. I've read it separate way. I think Digital Foundry gave another 360. IGN gave it to IGN. IGN gave it to PS3. Like. But regardless, like even that's kind of like in the nitpicky areas. It never was said like 360 was always coming ahead in that console. And also the 360 was like the one that I credit the most in that generation in a positive way for making a console an ecosystem. They were the ones that, like, from moment one, it's like the console was alive without the game, with the Xbox Live, like with party chat, the way that you could download games and DLC and the smaller games, all that. Original Xbox had an idea for that, but it was like so primitive. It's like 360 was when that came alive. It's like every console that we get nowadays is kind of like building upon like the trend set by the 360, because the PS3 was like the menu was the PSP's menu.
Right.
They had to like brute force trophies of sport. Like the store for PS3 at launch was a web browser that then eventually became its own store, like in 2008. It was like the PS3 was a slow cooker of a machine. Definitely like one of my least favorite PlayStation generations, like waiting so late for it to really cook and be like what it needed.
It did have a very solid last few years though. Like the late PS3 generation is what put the top quality Sony IPs on the map.
Yes, and
but it took time to get there. Yeah,
it was like it took advantage that it was like an Icarus moment for Sony where they fell off their high horse, but they slowly worked it up, slightly stumbled when they got their network hacked and down for a month.
Oh, yeah, that was a thing. And yes. I mean, I genuinely, not even to be a hater, I don't have a good thing to say about the Wii. Yeah. It had a couple pretty cool games. I mean, I'll say that, but like it introduced everything that was wrong with the industry for the next 10 years. With all that motion garbage and it also brought back a very, very, very arrogant Nintendo.
Yes.
Very arrogant Nintendo.
That then faceplanted extremely strong, like in its next generation.
Harder than even Microsoft did the next generation. Yes.
I love the exclusives in the Wii from 2006 to 2008. Then that console completely falls off a cliff. Then eventually gives me Mario Galaxy 2 in 2010 alongside Donkey Kong Country Returns, and that was it. Yeah. That was the least I felt engaged with Nintendo. Like I really moved on from Nintendo for like a while after the Wii.
I will say I liked what was it called? Was it Super Paper Mario? Whatever. I actually did like that game. That game was pretty good. It was like a side scroll, and then you would turn it into 3D, which that was a cool idea. That actually was pretty clever.
When did it come out? 2007. It's part
of I could not remember what year it came out. Was it that early? Really?
Yes, it was super early because it was like the run from Twilight Princess to Super Paper Mario to Metroid Prime 3 to Mario Galaxy.
And then you eventually got Metroid Prime Trilogy, which made 1 and 2 better even. But
exactly. And
those were technically ports. So I can't really give them the credit.
Yeah, that was in 2009 at a point where then like the libraries, to me, like the Wii's library dried up after Smash Brawl, which was March 2008. That was the period when after that, like my Wii started gathering dust because I was like, I'm buying everything on these other consoles. I'm more entrenched here. Nintendo's not giving me anything that fully appeals to me besides like the few times that they do, unlike like in GameCube land. So
actually, one thing I will give them credit on is the Virtual Console was
amazing. Yeah,
like the fact that they've never replicated that just is the most Nintendo thing you can possibly imagine.
Yes, because they're doing it instead.
That had to be where all their money came from.
Literally,
it had to be.
Yes, they kept the Virtual Console alive like longer than the Wii before they cut it off.
Yeah,
so, it was amazing. It had everything, including the Wii U one. It had like games that were not even there in the Wii, on top of all the games that were in the Wii. It's wild that they didn't continue Virtual Console, but it's because they're not doing the subscription thing, and that's working for them. So, which sucks.
So then our next generation was
PS4,
Xbox One, and Wii U. Really, there is absolutely nothing positive to say about the Wii U. That was
I didn't own it. That was the first Nintendo console I didn't own.
It was a terrible idea. It was an ugly console. It was a terrible library. Everything about that was a bad idea.
It's funny that a lot of the games that I was anticipating, I was like waiting for the 3D Zelda, waiting for the 3D Mario. They just got punted to the launch of the Switch because they were being built for Wii U, and then they moved them.
Yeah. So obviously, this was perhaps the most dominant generation since the PS2. I mean, PS4 just straight up owned Xbox One. Yes. That said, while Xbox One had an undeniably poor first party library, I actually did like the Xbox One, and I kind of didn't like the fate that it specifically the X. I actually really liked the Xbox One X. I did not like the fate that it befell. But there's no disputing. Like, if you had an Xbox One and did not have a PS4, you made a very, very poor decision. That's just there's another way to put that.
Yeah, to come at the defense of the Xbox One, because I'm a PS4 guy. The exclusive lineup of the Xbox One from 2013 to 2016 was more robust than the exclusive lineup from PS4 in that comparative period.
PS4 had a rough beginning for sure. Like everybody forgets it because it had such a strong ending. But that said, I don't remember very many. Like there were a couple games for the One's launch that I was very excited about, and actually I found most of them to be massive disappointments. I could not stand the original Titanfall. I don't know why that game is so popular.
I love that.
I thought the first Titanfall was terrible.
I wouldn't go terrible, but it was like it
was so repetitive. It was unbelievable.
That's kind of my problem. It's like it had such a strong core identity, and I like some of the maps, but it was like very few modes at launch. That idea of like the campaign that's been told like through multiplayer and all that just didn't work for me. So I didn't feel any connection for that. It felt like a solid foundation that I was expecting was gonna get more robust immediately, and I just kind of fell off. But Titanfall, like if you remember, was like in that early side, guys, that was the game that everyone was kind of like putting eyes on
for a couple months, and then everybody moved on because
and that was a problem. Everyone moved on so quickly. And
well, for me, the really big one was Forza Motorsport 5, and that is one of the biggest disappointments I've ever played. I was like, man,
I remember microtransaction hell of that one.
No, I don't think there were any microtransactions in it.
I remember it was. I remember I was still watching The Angry Gamer.
I not in 5. I don't think so. No,
the problem was the launch game, right? Like
Forza
Motorsport 5 was a launch game, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you could buy stuff. Like I remember it because it was like there was this guy at Games Trailers called like Marcus Beer who would go on those rants, and he showed that. I was like,
there was. Oh wait, this is Horizon. Hold on, that's why.
Yeah, Horizon. No, it's like Forza Motorsport 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I don't remember any microtransactions in it almost at all. I remember them in later games, but he keeps coming up with. But well, either way, the problem was there was not enough game there. There weren't enough cars. There like it was a pretty game with not nearly enough anything else. Actually, does say that in game economy. Maybe by the time I got an Xbox, they'd already nuked it. But
yeah, at launch there was like a big wow. You're really like putting all this microtransaction stuff. It's starting here, like, and because the Xbox One already had bad rap, it was like, in your big game, you're doing this. Oof. Because I remember the reactionaries at the time, like I was not a racing guy, but I knew that was happening. Like to me, like the early launch was Dead Rising 3 and Rise.
I did not care for Rise, but I did like Dead Rising 3 actually.
Dead Rising 3 was fun.
I know for some reason it's not looked back upon very, very fondly, but I don't know why. I actually thought it was pretty good.
I think it's more because the Xbox One just exists in a black hole. Like, you can't even talk about like the good stuff of that console because like when I think about the early, like compare the early exclusives of like just that first year to like the PS4, because in Xbox One it was like Forza Horizon 5, Rise Son of Rome, Titanfall, Dead Rising 3, Halo Master Chief Collection, Sunset Overdrive, like later that year, compared to Killzone Shadowfall, Knack, Drive Club, Infamous Second Son, Little Big Planet 3.
Yeah.
That was just in the first year. So it's very hard for me to say that the PS4's exclusive lineup at that time was like strong, because
it wasn't. It definitely wasn't. But
exactly. So it's like
the big difference was, and here's where the issue came when the stuff gets compared, is you did know that there were things coming. Like because Sony was pretty quick to announce a lot of this. It just was a ways out. Whereas with like when we talk about the PS5, Sony hasn't announced jack shit. Right, so that's the problem. Whether it is or is not in development, we don't know. With PS4, you knew it was in development; it just wasn't ready.
Oh, by the way, I see Lucas in the chat. Hi, Luke, and I technically didn't like Rise, but I liked it as the visual showpiece of the console.
It was impressive visually, no doubt about that.
Yeah. And that's why it works in the context of his launch, but it's not a game that I would recommend now. Even though I know there's some people that do recommend it. I'm like, it's okay. It's not great. It's just a great visual like experience.
COG is a huge proponent of it, and I don't get it. But I mean, if it's what he likes, it's what he likes. I just didn't think it was very good.
But to me, like what's so annoying about the Xbox One was that they front loaded a lot of exclusives in those from like 2013 to 2015 and even to 2016 to some extent. But then when they announced the X, which finally was going to fix the power differentiator, they had nothing. It's like now they have the console, but like the games already came. And then at the point that you got the Xbox One X, like the PS4 finally started getting its games. To me, I argue that I know people love Bloodborne. I respect it, but it's like, to me, PS4 started with Uncharted 4. Like really, really started. Like from Uncharted 4 onwards, it's kind of like the exclusives that really made an impact, that kind of like deserve rewards and all of that. I feel it took until 2016 for that to happen. And even then with the Ratchet and Clank 2016 remake that came a month before that, I feel that's kind of like the period where, at least from like an exclusive library start, but it really blew up in 2017 when they had that mixture of the Horizon launching and then like all those third party
and you had Nier like, and all that stuff. Like there was stuff that was big heavy hitters that you didn't even expect to be a big heavy hitter. There was, I would say, two major downsides to this generation. First and foremost is that the PlayStation dominated so bad it actually became an issue, particularly for the future, right?
Yes.
And secondly, and this was rectified by Xbox, but not Sony, the complete lack of any form of backwards compatibility was completely and remains to this day entirely unacceptable.
Xbox doesn't get enough credit for being the ones that
I agree with that. I agree with that. Like the reality is, there's no excuse for Sony not having anything yet. There is none. At the launch, it was one thing, right? We're 5 years in now to this console. There is no excuse for there not being any.
To be fair, it's like they're doing the PS1 and PS2 games. They've got an
emulator. Oh boy! But they're really pushing the PlayStation with that.
Exactly, but that's the thing. Like, it's like so slow in comparison to like how robust it feels like over an Xbox. I would even say like Xbox like screwed up for shutting down like their stopping it. It's like, gosh, there were still so many games that you could have added. A month later, when
they 100% should have kept that program alive, even if it came down to like where now you had to start really individually working on things that you're only releasing one or two, you know, per update or whatever. They never should have stopped that program. I totally agree.
Yeah, and that's and I know they're saying that they're working on like the forward compatibility with like whatever new hardware that allegedly is still happening. I don't believe it. How things are going right now.
It's a waste of Xbox's money, but hey, each their own.
Exactly, but it's like to me, it's just unfortunate that they stopped that program when they did it, because like the moment they announced Activision, was like, holy crap, there's so much that now they can add to the service, and they have done jack shit with it.
Yeah,
like were we talking about Quake earlier today? We were, right? Yeah. So it was like Quake 4 could have been added there. Like you owned it. Like there's no licensing problems here. You own the damn thing.
Yeah, that honestly should have been a day one. But like I don't want to hear excuses, Phil. That when the day that you owned Activision, that day Quake 4 should have been available on. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. That's not one. That's right. I don't give a shit about the old Spider-Man games. I think people are crazy that want those, because those games aren't very good. So I don't know why you even want those.
It's okay. I replayed it in Dolphin emulator. I was like, this is really rough. This is just gonna be nostalgic. It's like you don't really need these. Maybe Ultimate Spider-Man you do, but it's like not many of these.
But there is IP issues there. There is no IP issue with Quake and Wolfenstein. Yeah. If you own id and you own Raven and you own Activision, there is no IP disputing. So there's no excuse for that not being available and available to play.
Exactly.
And then we'll just very, very, very briefly talk about this one, because we're obviously in the midst of it. Then we got PS5, Series X, and Switch. There's definitely a lot to dislike with this generation, I think.
Yeah.
Particularly the direction that... Actually, I'll give Nintendo credit. I think of the three, Nintendo's the only one that even made a step in the right direction.
They've been consistent.
They've been consistent, and I've long said that the Switch is probably actually my favorite Nintendo system of all time. I did not have a Super Nintendo, or else it would have been that. But I despise the direction that Microsoft's going. I despise what we've gotten out of Sony. I don't really care, even though I like the library. I don't care for the PS5 as a piece of hardware at all. So,
yeah, it's like, it's so weird, because it's like a generation of monkey's paws, because the Xbox Series X pains me. It's not like as more beloved than it is, just as a piece of hardware. Like Quick Resume, gosh, it's such a godsend. Like you don't realize.
To me, I mean, I use it. I don't care about Quick Resume. I find like it's a good idea that way too many games don't work right with it anyway. So it means no.
It depends. It depends. If you're doing an online game, it doesn't work. But
there's plenty of single player games that has problems with it too. So there's a lot.
I had no problem using it, but just kind of like that idea of like the multitasking console like worked so well. Like obviously Game Pass, we know where that has gone. It's just kind of like that idea of like a consumer friendly, like service that is providing you all these games that should have been there before, like everything just the chips fell how they did with like with them flying too close to the sun with all their acquisitions and all that. But it's like I like the build of the console. I like there were games there that look better than on the PS5 version. It was slightly it's been the other way around in the other one, but it's like it felt like it had more functionality than in the PS5. That felt like they had to keep patching functionality like over time. And with the PS5,
I mean, to be clear, if I had my say, I would have rather seen the Series X be the more successful console. But Microsoft went out of their way to make sure that didn't happen. So
yeah, and it doesn't matter anymore. And then with the PS5, like to me, what's unfortunate was that to me it started strong, relatively speaking. It's just more like now that we know where the trajectory is going, it's unfortunate to think that the console really peaked between 2020 and 2022. Like realistically, in its cross-gen period. That's kind of like the thing, because it's like you can make the argument like Shuhei Yoshida said, is like regardless of what you think of cross-gen and all of that, they had a first-party lineup that was being fed to you from 2020 to 2022, regardless of the PS4 to PS5 status. It's just that then, like when we removed ourselves from that period and we start to get into the PS5 only stuff, we have to kind of like ride head first into all the bad decision making that happened of pursuing this stupid live service initiative, putting studios that shouldn't have been there, that basically took them out for the rest of the generation because of how long it takes to make games now.
For some reason, the whole mindset was competing with Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. That was all that mattered. That was all that mattered, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter in the least.
Yes.
When from day one, without any word being said, you knew goddamn well Call of Duty was still coming to PS5. So why Jim Ryan doubled down that they had to stop this, and then when he couldn't stop it, they had to come up with all these live service things to compete with it. He was an idiot that never should have been put in that position. And I'm not saying that in hindsight. It was clear from anybody with a brain, and I am absolutely talking to one specific podcast host here, and you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you are.
Who went out of their way to be like, no, this guy's doing a good job. Look how well it's selling. You're a fucking idiot. That's all I can tell you is you're a fucking idiot, because it is so clear that was not true. And that thing fucking could have sold well if a gerbil was running the damn division.
Yeah.
He did nothing to make that successful. It fucking did it because of its name.
Yeah, it was inertia. How good they did in PS4 that train just kept rolling like for those first few years. That's exactly what it is.
And that was why I said PS4 steamrolling Xbox as bad as they did is the worst thing that ever happened to PlayStation. It might be good monetarily, but if you're a fan, you should look back and go, damn, I really wish that Xbox.
I always said that like I'm only in PS5 because I was locked in. Kind of like what Phil said, that if you were locked in with a library, you're staying there. That is like this has been the most disenchanted I've been as a PlayStation fan, because it's like I feel neglected as a fan. Like, and I know some people argue it doesn't matter because look how it's selling. It's like I don't care. I don't care about the shareholders. Like I feel neglected because at no point I feel like there's a consistency of when they talk to us. There is no rhyme or reason of when we get games. We barely get games from them. To be fair, they did great second, third party deals that at least have given exclusive games to the system. Maybe not by first party, but they have tried to make sure that
we've got good games. There's no debate there. We just haven't got the ones that most of us bought a PS5 excited for. We have not gotten those almost at all. And when you got these assholes that sit up on their ivory tower going, I'm perfectly happy with my PS5. I don't understand people that don't like it. I don't care for it myself, but like, yeah, I got a huge library back here that I like, including, I'm telling you now, a larger library than the person I'm talking about, whether that person wants to believe that or not, I do.
Yes.
But I still look at it and I go, we're getting a lot of really like A and B quality games, which is great. We're not getting those S quality games that we've been waiting for because people like that person kept fucking defending this leadership and kept saying everything's fine. We know just because they haven't announced those games, we still know they're coming. Where are they?
Yeah,
we're 5 years in now, and they're still not even fucking announced. Why? Because they don't exist. That's why.
And that's the thing. Like the S tier quality came as cross-gen early on. So it's like the PS5 still doesn't have like its
because the PS4 was good and the PS5 is not. That's why. Exactly. Yes, exactly.
That's kind of like the irony, because like I still don't want it to come, because I still play those games on PS5. I enjoyed them on PS5. I loved my PS5 in those first few years, but now knowing how everything has kind of turned down, it's like
I wish the PS5 was a huge failure. I really do. I wish it was a monumental failure to straighten their shit out. It being successful is the worst thing that could have possibly happened if you're a PlayStation fan.
Yes. And that makes me so sad, because I feel like I know Xbox has tried so hard, and I believe they've had. Like, to me, it's a monkey spot. Now them getting all these games and Game Pass being like so robust and all that is like, you jumped the gun, like going for this multi-platform approach when you did. Like, gosh, you would be eating the
the correct approach was to have part of it be multi-platform and just as much of it be still to your console. They completely screwed the pooch by doing this. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And I feel that's kind of like the thing that cements this generation as kind of like one of my least favorites, even though there is still good there.
There's plenty of good games.
There. Yeah, it's plenty of games. I feel like this is a great, like what I like about these consoles, like from functionality alone, is like this is the console that standardized 60 frames. You can make the argument that yes, there's compromises and all of that, but it's like it's giving a quality of PC gaming that was not there in console, and I like that they kind of started doing that. Obviously, the PS5 Pro was like sold in the promise of like, yes, and we know that people like 60 frames, but they're lamenting the downgrading quality. Let's give you a console that at least through weird machinery kind of like bridges the gap between both modes, so that people don't feel like they have to kind of choose all the time. It's like there's a functionality to these machines for both of them that I feel kind of like as just entertainment centers where I play every goddamn game that I want to play. They work that way. It's just that I just don't feel passionate about like the outside of things, because one, like, is shutting up their identity, which sucks, because I'm like, you just got hijacked by getting too greedy of trying to get like, I tell you, like Activision didn't happen. I feel they would still try to fight with in the exclusive game. It's just now
they try absolutely unfortunately Microsoft buying Activision broke the entire industry.
In every way possible.
It did. It broke Microsoft and it broke Sony. Only Nintendo, who live on Jupiter, were unaffected. I mean, credit to them. Good for them. They at least were smart enough to
very shrewd to not.
They were smart enough to not overreact, which both Microsoft and Sony 100% did in both ways. But so yeah, that's pretty much, like I said. There's outside of bitching about the general state of the industry right now, there's not a whole lot to say about this generation as we're still in the midst of it. But
but it's just like I see it that way. It's like it's the generation that I feel the most ambivalent about, kind of like because I have become so disenchanted that I live in a perpetual state of numbness.
Sure.
That's why I probably sometimes I'm more impressed by mid things than they should, like a state of play, because I'm already like so.
I know a lot of people think that I am an overly negative person, and I mean I probably do sound like it. The truth is, if you would have talked to me at this time last generation, I would have said, if you don't like your PS4, I don't know what to tell you, because I don't know what more you can expect out of it.
Yeah.
I had so minimal, especially the PS4 Pro. Even I mean, I might have been a little bit annoyed about the refresh, but nevertheless, I got one and I was happy with how it did. I had very little things I ever complained about with that generation. This generation, I have found to be an absolute kick in the ass. If you like gaming, it's bad for the industry. What has happened on every front, and even Nintendo has continued this with their bullshit pricing schemes that they've pulled, right? And like I said, I cannot state enough how much I really wish from day one the PS5 was a massive failure. I really do. Yeah. I wish they had consoles sitting there day one that they couldn't sell, because I mean it wouldn't happen that fast, because like a year later, I wish they had consoles sitting there that they couldn't sell because they weren't making games. And then it might have motivated them to actually figure out what to do, instead of just overly relying on selling because of who they are.
Yeah, and I feel like more than ever, like these consoles are kind of like just being afloat by the now over prevalence of the forever games that people just won't stop fucking playing.
Yes, that's another thing. I mean, obviously, I can't say joke, but I always do, make fun of Fortnite or whatever. Whether you like Fortnite or not, you have to look at it and realize that it's because it's an issue. It really is an issue. Like, and not just Fortnite. I mean, Apex as well.
Warzone.
Is Warzone still up there? I thought it was plummeting like a rock.
It was plummeting, but it was kind of like one of the things that were.
It's still big, but either way, like those big 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. I guess Minecraft is probably technically one.
GTA Online,
probably one. GTA, there you go. They are doing like irreparable damage to the industry. Like I don't know how you fix it because you can't tell someone they have to take their game offline. But the fact that it's all the people play is super fucking bad. That is super bad, and I cannot say that well enough.
And that's the thing. Like
it is hurting the industry greatly.
And that was alone because you play all of that on PS5. It's like that's what allowed them because they become such a de facto console, and I hate that. It's like it's become just so basic. Like de facto is like it doesn't matter. It's just a machine where everyone's just playing all this shit. It's like that's what us that we know what it's like to be like in those ecosystems. It's like you would feel so underserved because this new wave has kind of I'm gonna say this has kind of taken over and really pampered them so that like. It doesn't matter that they're not delivering how they used to, and they made all these stupid mistakes that are not letting us kind of like now we know that we're not gonna get even as remotely close to a robust like late game, like late generation kind of like library because they're barely scraping by announcing one at a time. Like they can't even get they can't even fill up a showcase anymore. It's just state of place.
Just to say Fortnite as an example, just because I'm a little more familiar with the numbers on that. I can't tell you how much I wish that people would just stop spending money in that game. Play it. Play it all you want. Stop giving them money. Stop buying these stupid skin packs. That is why this continues. Because guess what? If you keep playing the free game and stop giving them all the damn money, they're not going to keep giving it. Well, number one, they're going to start lowering the prices to a reasonable price. The price of skin packs, people are nuts for buying this. People are nuts for buying this. But like that's why. Because Sony in particular is like, well, we don't have to make games because we're getting all this kickback by doing nothing other than keeping a network service up. And not just that, I'm the same with Xbox too, obviously, but it's just like it's like
and the promise of becoming
something's got to give here. Something's got to break.
And it's funny hearing people complain about $80 games when they pay for $20 for skins. It's like it's rich. Like talking about
I'm bitching about $80 games, but I ain't paying $20.
Exactly. For you, it's like more reasonable.
But I'll tell you right now, there is really only one game that I've played much the way of multiplayer, and it's Rocket League. And I'm telling you right now, I don't in the probably 1,500 hours that I've put in that game, I don't think I have. But even counting back to when it was a paid game, which unfortunately went free to play, which destroyed it. But I don't believe I have ever spent more than $10 total in that game. My friend bought me the PC copy, rather. I played it for free on PC. And one time, like 6 years ago, I bought the Battle Pass or whatever the hell they call it, Rocket Pass, whatever. That is it. I was like, when Epic bought them, I'm like, I refuse to ever spend a penny in this game now. I won't do it. I don't care if something I love is in there. I still won't do it. I will not give them a penny. And I'm like, number one, I want the game to return to be a paid game. It's gotten irreparably worse since they made it free to play. I was like, so I will not give them a penny. So I can at least proudly say that I'm at least standing by standing behind what I'm saying here. But
not many people are, and that's kind of like the problem with this generation. That is like it probably feels like a transitional generation. Unfortunately, bad for us that have been taken over by the freeloaders, and they're the ones keeping these things afloat. That is keeping the other company feeling like they can take as much time as they need or pursue things that end up doing nothing. And unfortunately, because their competition has just basically throw the towel because of all they spent. It's just unfortunate. It's like everyone ends up losing out there because it's like I hate a Sony that has no competition, and I hate that Microsoft knowing that they had what they had, they just threw the towel and are just kind of like embracing.
Microsoft decided to cut their own head off for some reason, and it's like all you had to do was hold course, and in 2 or 3 years, it would have caught up to Sony. But when you immediately went to putting everything everywhere else, and I'm not playing the console war, I don't want it to come across like that. I mean, if anybody knows me, I play way more PlayStation than I play Xbox anyway. So it's not that. It's that it is so clear by the early PS3 and especially the entire PS5 generation what Sony is like when they are confident. I'm not even saying arrogant. When they are confident, they are assholes. And you want them to constantly feel like they're on the back foot. That's the only way that you ever get a good PlayStation.
And that's kind of why, as a monkey's paw scenario, deal with the devil style thing, I hope the Nintendo Switch 2 kicks their ass.
So do I. I hope the $80 games don't sell. But other than that, I hope the Switch actually massively puts a mushroom stamp on the PS5. I really do.
Yeah, because like without competition, they're not gonna they're just gonna coast. And I love a PlayStation that competes. That was how we got a late PS3, and that's what eventually get to PS4.
Right. And PS4 had its issues, but like, you know what the difference between PS4 and PS5 is? And I'm not saying games. The difference was
the leadership.
When PS4 had issues, they fixed them. When PS5 has had issues, they may have fixed them, but it takes them a couple years.
Yeah.
To this day, you still, like, if you're like me and use like headphones, sometimes I want to bounce back and forth between either just being chat coming through them or chat and audio. You still can't do it without going through the whole menu. Because there's like that audio thing on PS4. You could do that. You could just bring it up, and there was an option to do it there. There are so many issues with the PS5 interface. Now, the PS5 interface for the most part is actually pretty good. Like, I'm not arguing that, right? But there are issues with it that because they're so market leading and have no pushback, they don't care. They don't fix them. But
if only we could get another competitor. That's kind of my thing. And then, like, I would hope.
Unfortunately, when we do, it's going to be like Amazon or Apple or something like that. And we don't want them as competitors. That's just it. We don't want them in this space either.
Yeah.
But, all right. Well, I think that does it with that topic.
Yes.
So I'll pose our next question of the week, which is just kind of a simple one. I'm actually just going to kind of add on to what last week's was. But so this time I'm going to say, pick one game that you like, whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it's. So Baden, you may pick Bloodborne this time if you like, and choose a mechanic that it does not have but you wish that it had, even if that would be an optional mechanic, right? Like a system or just some kind, whatever. And say what it is. Say give a brief little explanation about what you want it to do, why you think it'd be better. That's all. Pretty simple. So Alex, where can people find you?
They can find me at _Drosegovia on Twitter, Segovia on Blue Sky, and my written content over at seasongaming.com, where a review of Clear Obscure Expedition 33 may go live in a few hours, days. They have it now. So,
and
at the X, and they can find me also at the X Bottom Podcast every Fridays from we post from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing, depending on my internet upload speeds, because where I am sucks. Rick is a rotating co-host every other week right now. Like right now, we're doing actually a weekly extra episode where we're reviewing the Last of Us Season 2 TV show, where we are already kind of past the halfway point of the season. Rick and I approach the show with different perspectives and like coming together more often than I would even say.
We started here. We're more about here now.
Exactly. We're more closer into like the things, even though
Actually, the last one, I would say we were pretty simpatico on. We were pretty close on the last one, but
yes. So you can go hear that. Like, it's a fun extra one to be doing every week, I would say, especially because it's just limited. We're getting close to finishing now, so
yeah, which is nice.
That's every we record on Tuesdays. I wish we could record on Monday, but Rick can't. So we record Tuesdays, we post on Wednesday, and then we do the normal X Bottom show on Fridays. So Rick is off for this next Friday, so it's gonna be me, my usual co-host Paul, and my lovely, annoying other co-host Joe. So
we love him though. He's great,
and I liked him a lot this week. I'll say that
he did very good yesterday.
Yes,
he did very, very good. You can find me at Butch4969, Twitter, Steam, Xbox, PSN, you name it. And as he said, over there. And then other than that, 7:30 EST Fridays here. Me and typically Clint will be here when he feels like showing up. So thanks to the guys that showed up, Baldwin, Luke, and Red Beast. So you guys all appreciate you stopping in. I do have this. I almost forgot.
Yeah,
Silken it would have had my head if I forgot to do this. I did forget to do it one other time, but so let's see.
Hope you enjoyed the rant, Red Beast. Yes. But Rick knows that he can do this with me, that I'm simpatico to this generational feelings.
Even if I'm a little more extreme on it, you still understand where I'm coming from and don't completely disagree.
Yeah.
So
it's like, again, like I find the good on everything.
This is something I should mail this to Herman Holst.
Yes.
Now is the time to try something new. Sony, it's time to try something new. Xbox, it's time to stop trying something new and go back to what you were doing before you started trying something new. So, all right, guys. Appreciate you all stopping in. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
I just did the wrong thing again.